Can I make a motion that we leave executive session formally?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So, we left off on, the recusal request, for me. And I am going to voluntarily, recuse myself from the rest of this application. Right now. You all enjoy.
I would take the last cookie.
So Lake is the first alternate would move to the table.
Excuse me. Somebody somewhere.
Kate, I think procedurally, the next step the board should take is to vote on an acting chair for this matter, for this agenda item.
So the board needs to vote on an acting chair.
On the volunteer.
You want to do it? Nobody wants to, I will. Or if you want to.
No, I will not shirk it, but I'm not gonna volunteer for it either, but if that's what the board wants, I'll do it.
I would suggest someone nominate someone and then discussion and then vote.
Someone nominate someone at the table. So someone nominate either Daniel or Margot and then have discussion on it and then vote.
Do it. I nominate Margot.
I second.
All those in
All in
favor?
favor?
Any opposed? The reins go to you, Margot.
The reins go to me, okay, so I think we're on. We've gone through everything on. The first item, so the second item is citizen comments unrelated to the public hearing. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that anything to do with the Blue Sky application, there's another opportunity for public comment. When we get down to that item, so if there's anything else. That anybody would like to comment on. This is your opportunity to just come to the podium. If you could. Going to. Last chance. Okay, seeing no interest, then I think we can move on to the next item. And so this is the hearing, the continued hearing on the Friendship Road Blue Sky Tower application. And the first item here is to determine the land use ordinance that we're going to use, whether it be the older one or the new one that was voted in by the town. And I think Amy has, am I correct, Amy, that you are going to give us some clarifying information on this?
Sorry, I was on mute. Have you all received the supplemental application submitted by Blue Sky on this issue?
Yes, Kate passed these out.
Okay, yes. All right. So remember last time we met on July 9th, there was a discussion and because I didn't have the procedural history, I wasn't sure exactly where the planning board was in its review of the application. And Mr. Duval did take you through a procedural history then, and there was a discussion, as you know, at that meeting, based on, no particular research, but my understanding of how Maine law operates regarding applications that come before the board when there is an ordinance change that happens midstream. I believed then, and I told you that I believed that the new ordinance amendments, to the extent that they impact this application, would apply. My understanding is that they were voted on June 9th. And the law in Maine, there is a statute, 1 MRS section 302, that operates as a kind of rule of construction that would operate to say that the board the version of the ordinance that would apply to an application would be the version that is in effect when the application has received its first substantive review. And the first substantive review would not happen until after a completeness determination has been made on the application. It's my understanding, your ordinance does actually give that duty to the planner to actually deem an application complete. And it was my understanding, based on the discussion on July 9th, that the first substantive discussion at the earliest did not take by the planning board for site plan approval. The earliest date would have been that July 9th meeting, which is after the June 9th adoption of the amendments. So it is my belief and my opinion that I think the new amendments to the town ordinance do apply to this application. The new version of the ordinance. And as you know, at the last meeting, I suggested that the planning board table in part because, of course, the applicant wasn't aware of all the ways in which the new ordinance might change what would need to be submitted to meet the new provisions of the ordinance that would apply to this application. So my understanding was that Blue Sky has now supplemented its materials. For example, it's provided a landscape plan and some other things, as well as making an argument that the old ordinance should apply. I want to just address that briefly first. From my opinion, you will certainly should, Margot, I recommend you invite the applicant to make a statement that they want about this issue as well, so you hear from both sides. But the applicant, based on my reading of the application, suggests that it was the Board of Appeals meeting that happened on May 21st. As you know, there was a meeting before the Board of Appeals. It was the first variance meeting or first meeting to discuss a variance. The Board of Appeals is not a decision-making body on site plan review or site plan approval. And the Board of Appeals is not looking specifically at the performance standards that the planning board is. And the Board of Appeals also doesn't have to make a completeness determination before they look at a variance and decide whether to grant one or not. On top of that, I believe that the discussion was very preliminary. And in fact, there was some confusion as to what version of which application they were even considering. And ultimately, the Board of Appeals on May 21st decided to table so they could allow the planning board to conduct its review. And that's where that stands. So I do not believe that the May 21st meeting of a different board than the planning board and whatever happened at that proceeding is what can trigger or vest the version of the ordinance that applies to an application that comes before the planning board. So I don't believe that the old ordinance applies to this application. I believe the new ordinance does.
Would Blue Sky like to comment?
Madam Acting Chair, good evening, members of the board, staff, Earl Duvall, here on behalf of Blue Sky Towers. Also with me this evening, Jesse Marino, project engineer from Proterra Design Group. And where did he go? Evilio Santanago with C Squared Systems, RF engineer. So this issue did come to my attention just at the last meeting, whether or not we would be subjected to the new ordinance or if we would continue under the old ordinance. Now, as you know, I was here for a preliminary meeting back in October of last year. It's been a very long process to where we are now. I absolutely believe that our rights vested under the old ordinance. And they vested under the old ordinance for two reasons. Number one, there was a substantive review at the May 21st hearing. And secondly, even if you determined that there wasn't, or argued that there wasn't a substantive review on the May 21st hearing, equity independently finds that Blue Sky's rights under the old ordinance had vested. So I'm not going to walk us through the timeline in the detail that I did at the last hearing, but I am going to reference back to this. So our application was deemed complete, and I've submitted the procedural history into the record on March 25th. And we received that substantive review on May 21st before the enactment of the new ordinance on the 9th. The Board of Appeals opened a noticed public hearing and had a quorum. The Board of Appeals accepted extensive opposition testimony from a direct abutter for over 20 minutes. The Board of Appeals accepted a 30-page memorandum in opposition from the same abutter. Now, although, and I'm going to get to this when we talk about equity, but although that the board intentionally tried to prohibit me from addressing Blue Sky's application, I had experts with me. I addressed the very issue central to the relief: the 300-yard restriction, the coverage gap, the lack of feasible alternatives, effective prohibition, and even addressed a couple of the ridiculous comments that were made by the abutter. Now, a proceeding that includes merits testimony, written opposition, and applicant response is substantive in every practical sense. And like I said, even if you want to argue that that wasn't substantive or wasn't substantive enough, equity would independently find that our rights, Blue Sky's rights, vested under the old ordinance. I can clearly demonstrate that the town engaged in a pattern of wrongful and deliberate delay designed to postpone action on our application until after the effective date of the new ordinance. I think it's important enough that I should say that again, because I'm going to read you an email in a minute, and then I'm going to give you some procedural history that seals it. I will demonstrate without a doubt that the town engaged in a pattern of wrongful and deliberate delay designed to postpone action on our application until after the effective date of the new ordinance. I appreciate the fact that the chairman recused himself, because I need not look any further than an email between your then chairman and a resident, Wayne Myers. I'm not from up here. Thank you. So this email between Wayne Myers and your former chair, it says, "You did an outstanding job on managing the ordinance work session today. You knew the issue thoroughly, summarized without monopolizing, moved the meeting along without shutting anyone out. Good job, Wayne." Former chairman: "Thanks, Wayne. I'm hoping we can make positive changes that affect this project." Let me say that again. "We can make positive changes that affect this project and all future projects, while also making it just onerous enough that we can get the towers, that we can only get the towers that we truly need. Also, I'm planning to move to table the application to use all of our 150 days so that these new rule changes affect the current application. Thanks for your contributions to the meeting. Now, if we look back to my procedural history, it was, and I can go back and look at the exact dates, but it was in April in which we had a planning board hearing scheduled, and maybe I should get that here. Let's see. We had a planning board hearing scheduled for April 9th. There was still an issue then as to whether or not the planning board could issue a waiver for the 300-yard restriction, or if we needed a variance. I was told, and had multiple conversations with the planner and the town manager, that the planning board could issue a waiver. I don't have the emails with me, but I did a lot of research and sent emails over to the planner saying, I don't think so. I don't think, and although I would have felt like it might have been easier, I'm like, I don't think so. I don't think the planning board has the authority to do that. I think we need a variance of sorts. And remember last time I talked about how I had enough discussions with Kate to say, is it a dimensional variance? Is it a use variance? It's almost like that 300-yard restriction is like an overlay district. I said, we need to figure this out. What's the best approach here? It was even talked about that restriction, or I kept saying it in emails and in conversation, that is an effective prohibition. If you looked at the materials I submitted, I think that was agreed to in the Nobleboro decision. Same ordinance, agreement that it's an effective prohibition. So we didn't have a determination from town council as to what she thought it was. Looks like if I can do math here, 9 days later on the 17th, I got a call from the planner confirming that what we needed was a dimensional variance. And that the discussion was, that's probably the best mechanism for us to move forward under that 300-yard restriction for relief. Well, my client, Blue Sky, is starting to get a little impatient because we started a long time ago and now we're still trying to figure out what the relief is. And this isn't supposed to be adversarial. I'm supposed to figure out what your ordinance says and then do my best to comply with it. So because time had gone on, I had said, how about, because it really comes down to the gap in coverage and the testimony from the RF engineer and all the research that we do with regards to alternative sites and what works and what doesn't work and what's feasible and what's not feasible. So I asked for a joint meeting. I thought that was going to be so efficient, and I've done joint meetings for 30 years. It's efficient for the boards, it's efficient for the residents, it's efficient for the experts. It's good for all of us. It was denied. Now I know why it was denied. For delay. I was told, well, the boards are kind of wrestling back and forth who's going to go first. And the zoning board should go first. It was determined that we would go to the Board of Appeals on the 21st, and we'd go to the planning board on June 11th. June 11th. 2 days after town vote. I had discussions with Kate early on that we're proceeding under the old ordinance. In fact, remember, I offered assistance. I said, you want some RF engineers? I could make recommendations to you folks so they can look around the entire town to see where the gaps in coverage are, and you could create overlay districts. I was actually offering to help on the ordinance sections. So I show up on May 21st thinking that town council had shared with Kate, who shared with me, that the relief that we needed was a dimensional variance. I went in thinking that everyone was on board, that provision, illegal, effective prohibition. I knew what it is I needed to say, short, tight, clear, and concise, and that I was even told the town council was going to be at that meeting to help explain to the board what needed to be done, educate on the law. I knew something was wrong, and I so wanted to jump up and down and object, but my gut said no, because they opened the meeting on the 21st. The agenda, it talks about the same. Now the agenda has been clarified where it talks about public comment other than the application that's before you. Well, guess what? It didn't say that. And the chairman of the Board of Appeals had stepped down, and there was a new chair, acting chair, and allowed testimony from one of the abutters. Went on for more than 20 minutes. I'm saying never in my life have I ever seen this happen. Someone's testifying in opposition to my project, and I haven't even presented it. There was an executive session, and it was so obvious, and I didn't know why, but it was so obvious that the Board of Appeals wanted to just continue or table whatever they wanted to do to get out of there and punt the application to the planning board, which was again on June 11th, 2 days after the town vote. Now, shame on me. Based upon conversations with Kate, based upon transparency, based upon all the efforts that I had made to make sure that we were applying for the correct relief, I didn't know what was happening. I sat there saying, what do you mean someone was on the television, like, we need more information. We don't have enough information. We need to get information from the planning board. What do you mean you need information from the planning board? You have an application there, and I don't know about this whole confusion with applications. I think we cleared all that up, because there was just the site plan with a waiver, and then we updated the application to include the dimensional variance based upon council opinion. Everything was submitted. There was no issues with anything. Big fat application, 13 exhibits, which I painfully walked you folks through last time with additional exhibits. I had experts here. We had all the information that the Board of Appeals would have ever needed right here sitting there. And all they wanted to do was run. Be done, continue it. Well, now, the then chairman was sitting right in the front. Based upon that email, And we did a FOIA request. I've got some other exhibits about all these meetings between the then chairman of the planning board and abutters and neighbors, Facebook posts. It's a treasure trove of materials. It's crystal clear that there was a lot going on to make sure that Duval and Blue Sky ended up presenting after June 9th. That's bad faith. It's deliberate. It's intentional. There isn't any way that any court is going to subject me to the new ordinance with this procedural history and with this emails and information that I have. It's not going to happen. Our rights are vested under that original ordinance. And again, shame on me. So I come here tonight with direction from Blue Sky saying, if the board thinks and council thinks they're going to subject us to the new ordinance, which, by the way, 800 feet from wetlands, 200% tower fall zone. It's in your materials. We put together a really nice report in there. For the prohibition of service. Not going to work anywhere. It's unreasonable. It's intentional. So if I can't convince you folks that we need to be under the old ordinance, then I'm respectfully asking to continue this hearing. Next week, I'm scheduled to go before the Board of Appeals. I'll go to the Board of Appeals. I don't know what they're gonna do.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Yes, please.
You cited, I don't have the old one and the new one memorized, so.
Me either.
So you just need to help me a little bit here. You mentioned two things. The wetlands thing is pretty self-explanatory. There was no specific language in the old one, is that true, Kate, or?
That is true. There was no specific setback language.
And then what was the other one you were talking about? Can you explain?
There's a fall zone, and Jesse, please help me. There is a fall zone requirement in the, I'll say, old ordinance that was 105%. We met that fall zone requirement.
So if a tower is 100 feet tall, it's
You have to be
105-foot setback.
Okay.
But we changed it to 200, so now they'd
This
have
is
to
from the
be,
road. Okay.
No, from a
Inside.
property line.
any
Oh,
problem.
okay, got it.
Now it'd have to be 400 feet.
Okay.
But I only bring that up just as reference. I mean, we looked at it. Again, I think there was a substantive hearing. I think the delay, and I'm not sure if you folks have all the. Who do you want me to hand this to? We just got these, and thank you to the town and the
Hand
town.
it to the chair.
We just got these materials on Tuesday night, and I've not had a chance to look through them, but the town did a very nice job with the FOIA request and all the information. This is just stuff that I thought would be helpful for
So,
this evening.
so. I just want to understand just a little bit better, so the wall zone. If we were to go with the new ordinance, how far would you be out of compliance with as the application stands with in that area?
95%.
Okay,
Yeah, we met 105, and if you're going to 200, you would need basically almost double the distance away.
and the.
What are we now from the property line? 238 feet?
That's what I'm getting.
And they would require a 390-foot setback, which would. There's,
What is the setback?
the available space to them is 258 feet.
Okay.
At the last meeting, and I am having trouble finding it, you had mentioned that you and Kate had reached an agreement on a date to set for the start of the stop clock for the application. What day is that?
So Kate, you can help me out here, but we decided that, confirmed that April 27th, the date that we had we had received confirmation from town council that we needed a dimensional variance. We updated the application and filed it. So we said April 27th was the start. So September something, right?
September 12th.
I want to read for the board just out of the land use ordinance. Section 3.3.2 says that the submittal of an application for review shall not constitute the start of the review process for the purpose of bringing an application under the provisions of MRSA Section 302. The formal review process shall commence upon notification to the applicant that a complete application has been submitted. Kate, was that done? You did in March, right? But if we're moving that to April, but still before.
We didn't change that date. We didn't change the completeness date. We were being reasonable with regards to the shot clock, and with approval from Blue Sky et al. Because we were, what I thought, working cooperatively and collaboratively to understand what it was that you folks wanted us to do for the process. I mean, we were ready way back when to come in with an application for site plan requesting 2 waivers. The landscape waiver, which we removed, and we have even an updated landscape plan for you this evening, and the 300 yard. But I was uncomfortable with seeking a waiver. I didn't think that was legally permissible. That's why we got clarification and went to the Board of Appeals, which we were stopped in our tracks from presenting.
Let me say something. I think all of this we're discussing right now is sort of a sideshow. I mean, I think we should get back to the application. I tend to agree that we should let it go under the prior ordinance. And I think you could argue it probably both directions, I suppose. But the reality is that, they have been here for almost a year pushing this thing forward. So, and I think have shown good faith. I think they've shown good faith. So let's just get to forget about this prior review and just accept the prior, accept that, and just let them run the application through us.
So can I just ask 2 more quick clarifying questions, but then I'm gonna ask you to present that again.
I will.
But my quick clarifying questions are the fall zone of the tower, isn't the tower designed in a perfect world anyway to collapse down on itself and not tip over?
That is correct. One of the exhibits to the application states just that. The tower is engineered to do just that, collapse on itself, so it doesn't.
So this extra distance is kind of an abundance of caution, if you will, because it probably wouldn't in any circumstance just fall straight over.
Correct.
And then can somebody remind me what the difference in the wetland setback is on the application compared to the new? Isn't it less than 100 feet?
I believe it's about 80 feet.
About 80 feet, so
But
it's not exactly there, but it's not, it's not.
I think the new requirement is 800.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's all, it's.
What is it now, Jesse?
I'm just looking, I think it's,
720
yeah, so from the front pond, there's a front like farm pond there that is a wetland. It's, well, I think it's about 720 feet from that,
Okay.
but there's also some wetlands in the back. So you're probably, I'd say probably 120 feet from those.
Mhm.
Is what happens the further you go back, they kind of converge together till you get to the direct in the back. So
And what does the old ordinance say? In the
The
old-
ordinance didn't have
it
any.
didn't have any.
Didn't say anything about
say
that.
anything about.
Excuse me, can I get that distance again in the back? please?
Sorry
Sorry if I made a comment for you.
Sure,
Make
yeah,
a motion. Just, I would just like to mention that, to me, it sounds like the problem with your problem with the new ordinance is that you would have to ask for a variance for this project, whereas with the old ordinance, you have to ask for a variance for the project. Either way, you are going to have to ask for a variance from the appeal board. So to me, that's not a compelling reason to choose the old ordinance over the new ordinance.
It's, my understanding is it's more variances.
Yeah, they have to ask for two or three variances as opposed to the one.
It's all, no matter what is said. on the-
Yeah,
there's still one variance.
Yeah, no matter what, you're gonna have to go before the appeals board. I would also like to say that there were a lot of comments made about a board person who is no longer here. And so in my opinion, those comments are no longer particularly relevant as they were all pertaining to him. If you're alleging that there's a town-wide conspiracy because the town's moving slow and inefficient, I have some terrible news about rural municipalities for you. That is sort of the reality of our situation. We are more often on the receiving end of it, I assure you. So I would recommend that we go with the new ordinance that we put a lot of time and energy and got a lot of people's input on.
So as the chair, I'm willing to accept any one of the five of you making, well, the four of you, I guess including myself, makes five, a motion.
I move that we review this under the old ordinance.
I second that.
Any further discussion about that?
I think they were for new ordinance. That's just my personal opinion. Laws are laws. They're there for a reason. Can't just pick and choose when you want to apply something to something that gives you a benefit.
I'd agree, except that the ordinance says that their rights vest once the application is deemed upon notification to the applicant that the application that a complete application has been submitted, which happened.
That's not in dispute.
That's undisputed, and this says that their rights vest. They do not vest until that happens. So that's a negative, meaning that if they don't vest until that happens, when that happens, their rights vest. That's my interpretation. I know other people have presented other things.
Well, and I would say the lawyer did say that we have every right to examine this under the new ordinance in her legal opinions.
Well, Amy, you're still there?
I am here. You are about to lose me, but
Okay. So Daniel is reading from, did you hear what he read?
I did, and I'll just weigh in briefly, and I think this is the board's decision, and you can weigh a number of things. I do not read 3.3.2 as saying that the rights affirmatively vest upon a determination of completeness. What it says is rights do not vest upon submittal, and it says that the formal review process shall commence upon notification that a complete application has been submitted. The law further says, under 1302, that the vesting doesn't occur until the first substantive review. So I have seen some planning boards who do a completeness determination at one meeting, then they stop and they say, come back next meeting, next month, and we'll begin our first substantive review. And that's when things vest. And so I don't see the second sentence as saying affirmatively that the vesting occurs upon the determination of completeness, and that would actually run contrary to the court decisions that have interpreted 1 MRS 302, which say unless the ordinance expressly says otherwise, the vesting occurs upon the first substantive review by the planning board, not upon completeness determination. And I don't see this sentence as affirmatively saying that it vests upon completion. I do also want to just make one very small point, because I think you're probably going to lose me and you'll make whatever decision you'll want to make. In terms of discussions that go along with when an applicant meets and tries to get assistance from planning staff, that's very typical. Planning staff interprets the ordinance, but ultimately it's the applicant's burden to interpret the ordinance. And if a helpful staff member says, well, maybe you should try this, maybe you should try that, ultimately it's up to the planning board to make the decision. And so, you know, the allegations that the town told me to do one thing and then that didn't turn out is not, in my opinion, evidence of any kind of bad faith or deliberate attempts to delay. This is a process that has taken some time, I acknowledge. I think everyone is, at least from my observation, everyone has been here in good faith. There are a lot of complex balls up in the air, but that's up to the planning board to decide as to which version of the ordinance you want to apply to this application.
Well,
Further-
why don't we finish? We we're voting on that on the motion.
Well, yeah, is there any further discussion before we vote on the proposal?
Well, if it's open, it's open to further discussion, you have a lawyer up there who's telling you legally, I would think the latter is true. So why would you go against a legal?
No, she's saying you could vote either way, what she's saying.
Right.
It's up to us how we vote.
Right, but I'm saying her legal advice
Interpret, well,
is.
Yeah.
I mean, her
I'm not sure if
interpretation is her
advice-
interpretation. That's a discussion lawyers, we should, right. Also.
Right. Yeah, I'm just struggling with calling the vote because I have a feeling from what people have been saying, I'm gonna end up
Yeah.
being the deciding vote and
Well, so be it.
I just need to process this a little bit, because it's a big decision.
Yep.
Am I, Madam Chair, am I allowed to comment any further? Or
I think it's decision, it's
Yeah.
discussion amongst the board.
Right
Yeah.
now, yeah,
that's why I asked.
yeah,
Thank you.
no, I appreciate that, yeah. I guess, I'm allowed to discuss too, so I guess help me, the place I'm a little hung up on is I do want to act in good faith. I'm hearing both sides of this. I get that, I totally get the argument that this has been going on for a long time. I also get the argument that this is perhaps asking for 3 variances instead of 1 variance, but a distinct process. It's not a, final nail in the coffin in any way to vote in that direction. And, but I guess the thing that's in the back of my mind is I want whatever comes out of this to be as clean as it can be. So we're not setting ourselves up for just a lot of future potential litigation. And so that's where I'm struggling. I don't know if any of you can help me, because
Well, I think the two issues to have, the wetlands issue and the other issue are sort of like not really important here. So really it comes down to, I think, whether we're acting in good faith. And I tend to disagree with the lawyer, with other people on the board, that we're not acting in good faith here. I really think that these applicants have done what they've been asked to do. And I think the town planner has actually helped them along with that process. So I don't think we're acting in good faith here by continually throwing roadblocks in front of them, trying to, it does seem like a lot of delay and roadblock and just negativity. I mean, but whether you like the idea of a cell tower being there, it's a whole other issue here. I mean, let's get down to that. And talk about whether that's really something that we really need and want in this town. But not this continual sort of, you know, backdoor kind of
I mean,
maneuvering.
you can look at, I mean, you can say it's roadblocks, but also I feel like it's a.
Amy, can the other alternate who is not
Oh.
technically,
Sorry, I thought I can't vote.
can he participate, the other alternate, the second alternate?
He can speak, can't he?
Yes, yes, the second alternate can speak. The second alternate, if I'm understanding, cannot vote, but can participate in the discussion.
I just wanted to make sure.
Okay, thank you. You know, on one hand, you can say it's roadblocks, but on the other hand, to me, it feels like we're doing our due diligence in, you know, in figuring out all of this stuff. If there's something in the code that says, you know, hey, there is no setback, well, then we should put in a setback from the
I think-
wetlands.
I
Like
think-
that's on us,
Right,
you know.
if we were
that-
doing our due diligence, this application would have been taken care of months ago.
But I mean, why?
Because it's just been delayed. It's been-
Our job isn't just to stamp anything.
No,
that
believe,
comes
no,
across the
our
desk.
job is to deliberate, but this, you can't deliberate for, you know, on and on and on. I mean, come on.
I mean, if we're constantly finding new things and working out things, that's absolutely what we're here to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I hear what you're saying. I struggle a little bit with, I mean, there is an argument potentially to be made for changing rules in the middle of the game.
But there wasn't a rule there.
Well,
I mean,
Because there was
Well,
an ordinance. that was in
but
place.
still, I mean,
I would like to add that I don't view the new ordinance as a roadblock. I view it, we've talked about how a lot of it is just clarifying
I-
certain language that was vague or poorly worded. A lot of it was actually to make the process easier and more streamlined and better for everyone involved.
No, the roadblock is in not the ordinance itself. The roadblock is in, you know, trying to kind of keep making the leap a higher hurdle. You know, I mean, and when they're sort of acting in good faith and they come before us and they've been here for a year. And now we're still saying, okay, well, now you gotta do this, now you can do that, now you gotta do this, right? I mean, why can't we just move forward with the actual, I mean, what's really important here? Do we want to sell tower there or do we not?
Yeah,
I mean-
people can disagree though and it's hard for somebody to make a decision that affects so many people and the town.
Well, let's
So
make
it's
that
hard- it's
decision,
hard.
right, but let's
I
make
agree
that
with you.
decision. I
You
mean,
should be
instead of-
expedient, but not at the cost of not doing your due diligence.
Right, let's do, I'm saying, let's do our due diligence here and get on with the
Yeah,
actual
one way or
application.
another.
Just to weigh in again, from my perspective. They submitted an application. It says in Article 3 that the planner and the code officer review it. They tell them what else they need to submit. I feel like retroactively saying we need to have you submit all this other stuff. It is changing the game mid-game. And I don't want to say it's unfair, but I mean, if a new application came, we're not going to say they can go under the old one. They're going to have to go under the new one, but we've gone over and it all through here. It says the planner determines when an application is complete, what they need to submit. I think that they have a submitted application that should have come before us. There's been these delays. But when they submitted their application, the old ordinance was in effect. I think we should use the old one, but I'll go with what everybody wants.
any further discussion? We're ready to take the vote. I appreciate the conversation. It's helped me. I don't like what's about to happen, but here we go. I gotta remember how it was stated. The motion was to use the old whatever it's called, the old ordinance is all in favor. Opposed. Okay, so it's 3-2. We're under the old ordinances. Okay, so that moves us to the next item, which is the application review.
Madam Chair, I apologize, but I am gonna have to log off tonight. I wish you good luck in the review for the rest of this evening.
Thank you, Amy. Appreciate your help. Okay, Kate, before we begin this, I just need a little clarification. I've got these two things.
So
They look a lot the same.
I do, I apologize, I didn't put 2025, 2026. The 2026 one is the small one. It has, that's the one you should not be using, which is.
Okay,
supposed to
because
not
we
use that.
decided,
The one
we
that's
just
full
voted.
page,
okay,
that is the checklist based on the 2025 ordinance.
and because I'm new at sharing just a procedural in the presentation, is it more efficient to just start at the beginning and go through in order? Or when we say that the applicant is doing a presentation, do we let them speak for a bit and then we go through this? What do you recommend?
If you wanted the applicant to speak, usually what we have done in the past is this references the ordinance, so it just helps you walk through all the different pieces of the ordinance. So it's I have gone through that, but it's for the planning board to go through and just look at the application, look at the ordinance and say, do you have questions? Are there things you still need to know? And that's when the applicant gets a chance to,
So we just,
to
we don't
answer
need-
any questions that come up as you review.
we don't need the applicant to make a preamble. You
No.
can just jump with
Not
it.
unless you wanted to, that would be
Okay,
at the discretion of the board.
I just, unless I'm hearing any big objections, I just assume we dive in. And it would be helpful to me, if Kate, tell me that if this is wrong to do, if we just take a quick, on each one of these, a quick statement from you, since you were the planner and reviewed this, that, just a, statement of the facts, like this one is open, this one is complete, this is why, or whatever, it just help us walk through this.
Sure, there's also on the side.
I see that, but I won't print names.
Yeah.
So we need to start with the procedural items at the top.
I think
Or
we've
not.
been through, it's submitted on town office forums.
So we get right down into
The
the,
fees have been paid. I think you can probably,
so you'll stipulate that the first four things are all done.
Yeah.
So we're beginning with accepted by the town office, and this says it was sent on March 6th, that was reviewed on March 12th. So that's affirmative.
yes.
Okay, and submitted on town office forms, which was confirmed, so some of these are pedestrian. Applicant information was provided, property location and details. So up through those, those are just kind of perfunctory, and we can just check those off, so. Verification of ownership, we have
The applicant submitted a lease that he has with the actual landowner,
okay,
verifying that they have. connected to the land.
I'm assuming that continues over to Melvin's widow.
Yes.
From what I'm passing, okay.
and the fees are paid, and it says $500, $30 due at site review, so what's
They're-
the status?
They are fully paid up.
Okay. Estimated cost and construction,
That wasn't listed.
pardon?
The estimated cost of construction is not listed.
Is that important or why is it not listed? Is there a reason behind that?
I think it depends, it varies.
So.
And so we have the engineering details, they did not
Right.
provide us with. This is from chapter 3, so this is applicable to anything. And so it is the planning board could ask for a cost, an estimate of the cost is usually asked for, if you're doing a big development and you're unsure of, make sure that the project can be carried forward if it's approved,
Like they have the financial ability.
that they have the financial ability to do the project.
And does anybody have concern about that in this case?
I mean, I would like to hear it. We don't need to deny the application based on that, but I would like to add that that be provided at some point.
do you guys have a quick summary of that item or?
I can get information regarding that. I think there was an exhibit submitted with the application that talks about Blue Skies funding and capacity to do the site, which is quite significant too.
And so, but you'll provide a quick, just a
Yes.
executive level.
Is there anything that you can share with that this point, Jesse?
Maybe a little bit on the site, but I think depends what you want to include in the total estimated cost. So it's probably best to come on Blue Sky, or we can
I
help
can-
them put that
I can
together.
get that.
And again, to Blake's point, I don't think that's anything to hold everything up, but anything else to have. The description of the project is covered in the narrative on page 2. Are there any questions about that from anybody? I think we've talked about that a lot. Anticipated start and completion dates were provided. Could you remind us what those are?
If you were to get approved, when do you anticipate?
Well, yeah, it is maybe hard to answer because you still have
Is
some.
it sort of a
Right.
more?
Can you give us a sense of?
Based upon the interest they've shown me in the site to get this moving, I think very quickly.
And what's the duration generally for a project like this?
16 weeks, maybe something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Roughly.
Okay,
A lot of it can determine on getting power, sometimes there's delays in that, but
right. Yeah. All
weather, right? If you try to start, and you get bad weather, it might go into the spring, depending on
All local, state and federal permits are required. And is everything done except this is hung up by this process and the variance from the appeals board, is that correct?
Yeah, and the variance is, not I mean, that's the local. It's not really a
Right.
per se, but I just noted
Is
it
there anything
there.
you wanted to?
And they have the review, was in the packet that they submitted. The supplemental, they updated that, need to review it when we have, okay, from the applicant, and it is at the applicant's discretion what other permits they need, we don't tell them what other.
Is there a DOT concern with the access from the road or not?
Because they would be coming off of the Williams's driveway, I don't believe they need to get a DOT
Okay.
access permit, because the access is already provided. They might need to double check if there is a high volume of traffic anticipated, other than what a normal driveway would be purchased.
Okay.
They don't believe that is the case in this case, though.
Site maps are provided.
If I could, I just like to add,
Oh,
we talked about it the last hearing, there is a state permit that you need for prior to construction that happens if you're disturbing more than an acre of land, and that occurs. Generally, you get that permit after approval. You wouldn't get it until you were approved. So you'd have to do that, but then before you stuck a shovel in the ground. So that would need to be done, but that would be additional permit.
Okay.
But it's just for land disturbance, and you wouldn't get that until you knew what the land disturbance was approved.
Site maps are all provided. Anybody have any questions or? I know I've seen lots of pictures of this project myself. Anybody have any questions or feel they're missing anything?
Sir. Madam Chair.
We had a couple of additions that were a correction on a butter property that came up last time, which we can submit now. And there was a question last time or a request on the landscape plan to provide landscaping all the way around. So I would submit both of those here.
That would be great.
That's showing all the way around, and then there was a question here. This was shown as all. So now it is. That's two.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. Pass these down if anybody wants to look at these. As just in the spirit of efficiency, passing these, we all each got a copy of the so we're gonna. If any questions come up, please raise them as you get them, but I'm gonna proceed in the interest of efficiency. Okay, so the next thing is water and
Let's make
sewage.
them all be together. Are they all the same?
Water and use doesn't apply because there'll be no usage.
That's what I was just gonna say that myself,
I
but
have another one about.
yeah, no sewage in this facility doesn't mean no water for any reason, no food or anything like that. Okay. So, non-applicable, and so the septic piece is not relevant. Vehicular and pedestrian and traffic. That's an odd sentence, but there's a narrative about that. Somebody get a quick summary. This is not a high traffic area, correct?
Yep, that is correct, and that's on the bottom of page 14, I think, of the application, and the facility is unmanned once it's operational and does not generate any daily traffic, at all. Be a standard, maybe SUV type vehicle that would visit the site approximately, one time per month for potential routine maintenance.
So I do have a question that came up in the last time we were all together about this. And tell me if I'm remembering this incorrectly, but my recollection was that somebody had made a statement that you had not planned to keep this roadway plowed during the winter time. And I guess I have some concern about that. Just if an emergency vehicle ever needs to get down there. That, you know what winter's like.
Yeah, so yes, so generally, sites, access, such as this is not, plowed. Unless one of the cell techs or carriers, needs to get in there for some sort of maintenance. And a lot of times they'll use a tracked vehicle or whatnot to get in. But if the board wants to make that as a condition that, if, a snow amount over a certain amount, then the applicant needs to, have that open for emergency, vehicle purposes, then, I think we could do that. So.
Any comment on that? I mean, I guess I'll just say I'm kind of inclined to ask for that, but I mean, not at a ridiculous level, but. I would.
Do you have anything to add to that, Jesse?
It's not very common to ask for that, but. This guy doesn't.
I guess I'm thinking of you guys tell me if I'm all wet about this, but I'm just thinking of a conversation we had with the prior code officer about just concern and the challenges of getting emergency vehicles down on maintained roads, and it's hard to know what. I mean, you can't see into the future, but of course, if you plow it, nothing will ever happen. And if you don't plow it, then you're gonna need to get in there. And if there's a foot of snow and ice, that's not an easy thing to.
I'd agree if this was a road, but it's a driveway.
Okay,
Yeah, I would just say that's a good point. It is a driveway. I mean, it's unmanned from the standpoint, there's no one, it's not occupied. If you would, think about other type uses, like for example, like say power lines or power poles, they have access driveways too, but that wouldn't be ever plowed. But just some things to,
And
to
if
think
something
about.
malfunctions, then do you get a front end loader and get yourself in there? Is that
That's
basically?
usually what happens. I mean, a lot of times when we do stuff in the winter, you know, you might get a four-wheeler, a snowmobile, that kind of thing. Sometimes you hike in. You know, I see what you're trying to balance, but
Right.
it's not typical, I would say.
Any other comments on that? Does the rest of the board feel comfortable with not asking it to be plowed? Okay,
If on one hand, they're saying that, you know, we need to do this because there's coverage and that, you know, it's providing a service to the community. But then on the other hand, if there's emergency there, then there is no access to it in the winter. You know, for emergency vehicles, that does seem like a little.
You never know when
you're gonna get an emergency, so it's better to be a little bit proactive.
well, I kind of feel that way too, but. I don't want to be unreasonable about it,
Yeah.
but I guess,
I mean, it's certainly not the applicant trying to be unreasonable. I think history tells us we've got mountaintop sites all over the place that we don't have access to. I mean, I ride up there on snowmobiles, on tracked four-wheelers, you know, side by sides.
On top of mountains, right?
Right.
Cannon Mountain, there's one, so
Yeah.
they're not always drivable. Some of them are helicopter sites, but
And as Jesse said, I mean, it is unmanned. They're only there if they're swapping out some equipment or something goes wrong, and there's so much of that equipment that even can look and diagnose, you know,
it
remotely.
goes without saying that if you need to get in there, it's on you to.
Right.
Make it.
I think that if we added something like that, even if we did, it's unenforceable.
Right.
Nobody's going out and saying, oh, we have
It's
one
14
extra inch of
inches
snow.
right, exactly.
Where's their plow?
Yeah,
Um,
okay, I'll move on. Cause it just seemed like the time to raise it. Other information provided, section 5.2, what is that? I think I'm since you're, or
160.
Okay, 3.5 is, if they need any other, if the planning board has asked for any other information necessary to show compliance with the review criteria or other requirements. of this ordinance. So we have, all the other things they have to do to comply with the ordinance are shown in the other articles.
okay. So
This fall under, I know I have health concerns for people who got it, but I remember there was a question of, you did a study on how much, I don't know, bad stuff was being emitted by that tower?
Radio frequency
The radio
emissions.
frequency, yes. And I see that's the next question in box 2. Who did that study? Who did it? And when was it done? And is it possible to get an impartial third party to go over the data? So who did it and who paid for it?
Yeah.
And then what was, you know. Well, not even, did the Blue Sky or Verizon, did they contract the study out, or was the study just done?
Yeah,
How long ago was it done?
yeah, the study is done on behalf of Verizon Wireless. And you should have, I'm sorry? Oh, yeah, I thought you did that.
I did.
Did I say that last time? My name is Civilio Sotolongo. I'm here on behalf of Verizon Wireless with C-Square Systems. You should have a copy of this, which is the MPE report available to you. And the MPE report was done on February 26, 2026. Yeah, and the results of the MPE report are such that the level of RF radiation emitted by any given sector of the site is 3.16%. That means that is roughly 97% below what the FCC deems safe. Beyond 100% is not safe. We had the discussion And I remember there was a person from one of the boards, I think it was the appeals board, that asked some detailed questions, and we went over the data and the numbers as well. But it's extremely safe. And we did this on behalf of Verizon because it's information that must be submitted with the application.
When you say you did this on behalf of Verizon, did Verizon, were they the people who wanted to study them, and did they request it, did they pay for it?
It's required.
Or it's required by whom?
By the FCC.
And we required in our application too.
Okay, and there's been no anecdotal reports anywhere that there's been any type of health issue?
No, sir. So this RF is relatively safe. If you recall, last time that I was here, we talked about RF, we talked about light, we talked about X-rays and gamma rays. X-rays and gamma rays are extremely penetrating, energetic, and they can move electrons in your genetic makeup and cause mutations. Radio waves are not. I was at a hearing 2 weeks ago, and somebody asked, one of the residents asked, could you give us the burrito explanation? A burrito, like the stuff you eat. And I did. A microwave in your house, when you stick a burrito, and I told him, well, do you want a frozen burrito explanation or a room temperature burrito explanation? And he said, either way. So a microwave in your house, in that compartment, has a wattage, power-wise, of microwaves of 1,500 watts. And it takes about 2.5 minutes or so to warm up a room temperature burrito, or maybe less. But that's a microwave has a wattage of 1,500 watts. If you were to put a site out here by the street and bring that same burrito and put it here, you wouldn't be able to warm it up. There's not enough energy. The amount of wattage being received by that burrito from the new site nearby, make-believe site for this example, is 0.00000 and then a number, non-zero number, watts. That's the amount of energy emanating, RF energy emanating from one of those sectors, as compared to the energy in a microwave of 1,500 watts. Are you guys with me?
The microwave door is closed.
And the microwave door is closed, so you're safe. But the energy here is a period followed by 9 zeros and then a non-zero number, watts. Extremely low energy. That was the point.
And I accept that, but I just don't. I mean, these people are gonna live there constantly. A microwave is going for a minute. Constant. So that was my concern.
I see. So again, these thresholds are based on IEEE studies that have been conducted on biological specimens to determine what is safe and what is not safe. And therefore, that threshold of 100% exists. And that's why we calculate to what percentage is the radiation effectively at any distance away from that site. And that's in the MPE report that you guys have access to.
Okay, I'm just sort of looking down this next set. I'll just read them quickly. Names of engineers and other professionals provided planning board approval block, revision block, conditions of approval block, the building structure drawings. I think those are all there. The estimated peak traffic, average daily traffic, the site map. I think the next one we really should talk about is the stormwater and erosion plans. Are there any concerns with 2 through 8 that I read really quickly? I mean, I think those are pretty perfunctory items as well. So stormwater and erosion plans, I guess I had a question about, somebody brought this up at the last meeting about the driveway and stormwater that would be shed by the driveway, and I have physical difficulty to personally get out to the site, so I haven't seen it in person, and I don't have an understanding of distances or what those concerns are, but I guess that's one of the reasons I just feel like we want to bring up stormwater and erosion, just with a specifically
your
driveway
plans?
facility. I think the plans are there, is that correct, Kate? But
Yeah, you have in the packet, there's a stormwater and erosion control plan.
which I remember seeing, but did that include the driveway that leads in there, or are there any concerns? Has anybody done any analysis about? I mean, the culverts or? anything?
Stormwater was for the entire lot.
Okay, but it includes the driveway.
We have the number off of the map, which map it is.
I think Jesse's gonna go through that with you now.
You got a map, we can go over it.
Okay.
So if you remember last time, we did talk about it, but we can talk about it again. So in this case, so that the driveway is approximately 1,400 feet. And I would say, don't quote me, but about 60 to 70% of it follows an existing sort of path that leads from the pastures out. There's a small section in the beginning from the street into approximately where the cemetery is, where you'd come straight off of. So that there's this is a good one, let's look at.
And the part that's existing,
So the part so
yeah. Go
if
ahead.
you can take a look here, so. Here's Friendship Road.
Mhm.
Back in this area here is the cemetery.
Right.
The home here and all of the barn and what have you is here. And there's a driveway that kind of comes around and heads out. And from about this portion on, the driveway certainly improved, but it's following roughly sort of a farm path that's there. The part in the beginning here is newer. And that's to get access right out to the street here, such that you can get back there without having to go through, around the farm, including where they have the pathway and what have you. There's actually a fence here and stuff.
So that's the part that's not previously
Yeah.
existing. Yes.
There also are a lot of, you mentioned culverts. There's several culverts that are in here. There are several swales, particularly on the downhill side here, although we are on the sort of the ridge line there.
Mhm.
And this is the one, you can see these arrows here. These arrows are pointing in the direction that the stormwater would go. And yes, you have a butters here and you can see that it heads that way. However, as part of the drainage, we have added swales in here to capture any of the water from the driveway and carry it and swale down until we get to a portion where it can be level spread far below where the homes are, back towards the wetland, toward the end of the property. So there are several stormwater features that are incorporated to do that.
And the newer part that's up on this first house, that's close to this first house.
Mhm.
How's the water channel?
Okay, so there's actually, across the street here, there's a culvert that comes across and there's actually a wetland right here.
Okay,
There's also a small wetland on this side. We're kind of going in between those. And we have a culvert here. You can see we're taking that existing water. We're going to put it through the culvert. And we also have a swale along this edge too, even though we're below this home.
but there's
For the most
another one
part.
right. where
There's
you're-
another, yeah, exactly up front here. We do have stormwater features there as well, with a series of culverts to take the water from this side and bring it back where the existing pond is. And
the following arrows of the existing stormwater where it heads now. So we have those features on there. In addition to that, one of those things on there is erosion control plan. We can see here we have an erosion control plan that at the limits of work, we show silt fence and limits of disturbance there as well. It was talked about last time about, and it was the former chair brought it up, who was, had, my recollection, there had a lot of experience with construction and what have you, and he was more, asking about a written plan. So we did put a written plan together on that. So it's a operation and maintenance plan, O&M plan, and a stormwater pollution prevention plan. So I'd like to submit that to the board. And it just goes through, basically the process for how we chose in putting these erosion control barriers. And then the various devices that we have in here, culverts, swales, things like that, how they would be maintained. So they are effective. So
That's
we
good.
talked about that last time. It didn't really say in the bylaw that we needed to, but we brought up, so we did that. We can certainly.
Thank
certainly
you.
do that.
And yeah, that was part of the question on the tip of my tongue. If just my own experience doing project management and construction,
Mhm.
best laid plans, all the engineers, you go through your first winter and spring, and sometimes some of these things don't work the way we thought they would.
Sure, yeah.
And it is on you, I trust, written here, that if modifications need to be made.
Yeah, absolutely.
That-
The
that's
whole
what-
idea, that's a living document, if you
Right.
read in there. Yeah, things need to be maintained. So we're not really changing the direction of where it's flowing, but we are providing these, what's called best management practices to help separate and convey any additional runoffs that may be created safely and non-erosively. That's what-
And without making me look it up, how, let's say in a typical month when the construction is completed. How often do you anticipate vehicles will be driving down that driveway?
So, usually there's, so after it's built, usually the most activity is when it's built, right? Because-
Of course.
Exactly. After, each carrier that may be on it, they may be going out there approximately once a month, to check on things. Additionally, the Blue Sky might go out there once a month.
So-
Or every couple months. So you're talking about
A half a
not even
dozen,
trips per day.
right,
So
half a dozen trips a month.
something
roughly,
like that.
Something in
correct. So
that
if you-
ballpark.
to put that into context, a single family home. Off the top of my head may have 7 to 10 trips a day. And trips are like an end trip. Like if you
Right.
go to work and come back, that's 2 trips.
Right, got that.
So, each of us has different schedules, but just globally overall, 7 to 10, something like that. If you go to work, come back, you go to the store. So those are trips. That would be 7 to 10 per home per day. So
Right, and
we're
this would be
talking that,
7 to 10 per month.
yeah. Maybe over a course of a couple of weeks or a month, right? So
Okay,
once it's established low. And why would you say that? Because no one works here per se, it's unmanned, right? The only time you go here is upgrade. If there was something that they couldn't remotely fix, if you have to provide fuel or something, or
adding equipment.
adding equipment, exactly. So that's when the trips.
Are there any questions on this topic from anybody else? Ready to move on to the next? Okay. The technical financial capacity, I think we kind of discussed that already. Contour lines, I see them all over the map. I think we've got that. Fire protection provisions. There's a narrative on that. Could you just review that really fast?
So let's see. Yep, page 15 on the application. And maybe Jesse can speak to this, but we're constructing, and you can show that on the plan there. Access drive that's sufficient for, emergency service vehicles with parking and turnaround. adjacent to that fence compound. Can you show that on there?
Are there,
And if there's any concerns, I'm not sure, Kate, if the fire department has seen these plans, but if there's anything that the fire department,
is there any alarm? Like if something caught on fire?
The equipment has alarms and
Yes.
they're monitored
Okay,
by them. Yeah, there's they have basically just like similar to like a smoke detector, a heat detector in those. They do have them. One of the other things is the compound is, in this case, it's forget the exact size, 50 by 72. And you'll notice inside that well, right now there's only one carrier on this pad, but they're separated apart. And in between them is stone, like stone mulch. So the idea is that it's not vegetation, it's not something that can start on fire.
if a fire were to occur, is somebody gonna have to see it, or is there an alarm that?
The cabinets have,
Right, so somebody will be notified
Yeah.
offsite that that's.
similar to a home, like if you're
Right.
on home, the smoke detector will go off or something like that. Yeah, very similar to that.
Right, but
They're UL rated cabinets.
but the fire department isn't gonna know about the smoke detector necessarily unless. I find out.
Not generally, no.
Right.
A lot of times they'll get they'll either have a code to the gate or a lock, or there could be
Like a Knox
a
box.
Knox box. that
Right,
has
right,
the-
no, I get that part, but like if the fire starts, do we have to wait for somebody to observe it, or is there, like in a security system for,
Yeah. Very similar to that. So
Okay,
there's
that's
something
what
called
it
a
was.
NOC, each carrier.
Yeah.
As a network operations center, and inside they monitor, whether the site's up or down, whether there's power. Some of them are pretty sophisticated. They can monitor like how much fuel's left in the generator. Whether there's over temperature, things like that. So that network operations center does monitor that.
okay,
But it does not automatically go to the fire department. There would have to be,
well, they may do the
Exactly.
in-between call, but somebody remotely
Somebody is-
will be
will
aware
know.
that something
Yep.
amiss is
Yep.
happening.
correct,
Okay.
yep.
Any other questions on that article from anybody? So let's move to the Article 7, General Performance Standards. Buffer areas, this is the landscaping. Using there, we have a new landscaping plan. Are there any questions on that? I think it looks, my quick first glance, like they complied with what they requested to have a 360 surround.
Daniel, you had a question there about something about making sure that they were plants that were on a particular list. Both of those are on there. The cedar, which is the type of the arborvitae, which is a type of cedar, and the white spruce are both on that main list. If there is a concern about, deer don't like white spruce, they do like arborvitae, so if there's a concern about that, there's an alternative, we could use a viburnum or something like that, if that's a concern. Really, realistically though, I think my recollection is we're about, I would say about 25 feet lower than the street. And we're about at least 900 feet or so back. So it's more for sort of long views or the closest abutter when there might be winter conditions, and that was the whole idea of going all the way around with them. But we'd be open to that if you do like an alternative there, but that's what that was what was discussed last time. We tried to be attentive to that request.
So I am looking through Article 7, buffer areas, construction standards, electrical. We're not in the historical village district. The lighting and noise both meet the standards. Is this the place where we talk about the generator decibels, or?
You have a place in Article 10 that. goes with
Okay,
this.
so I'll wait for that. And on 7.13, is this the place where we ask if they've gotten the little letter from the state about there's no parking lot goals and things that they're aware about? Is there a?
Yeah. That was submitted with the
Okay, perfect. Anybody have any questions? So go ahead.
I do. I don't know if this applies, but I'll just bring it up because I see it. That emergency services, when you gave the initial presentation, you said EMS. You would have a separate box or something for them so they could get notified quicker.
I think what we were talking about was the
Knox.
gate, the Knox box
okay.
for the gate.
Can you just talk about that though, while I got your attention about the emergency services? Because the EMS, having been in the medical service for 40 years, I know the value of being a couple of minutes quicker. So, Julie, did you have, have there been complaints that EMS hasn't gone down quick enough? Or is that an issue?
So
Because the ambulances, they have to have a chart and they log in, log out, what time they got there, what time they dropped the patient off. Have you seen anything to indicate that there's been a problem?
with cell coverage and people getting there in time.
Exactly, with the timing.
I would have to ask specifics on that. I'm sure they can give you some. Anecdotally, there is an issue with that in several sections of town
Right.
where if the radio's not working, sometimes cell service does not work. I've heard of that, but if you would like that data, I can get that from emergency services.
I think
for
that
you.
would be good, because that's come up and that's one of
Yeah.
the positive
Strong
things that
points.
this could bring.
Exactly.
to
Yeah,
the
and
community.
because the ambulances, they have a log. They
Right.
know when they get the call, they know when they
Well,
get the patient.
EMS, fire and police all
Yeah.
have.
Yeah, that would be interesting to get that.
Just
I
to
will
weigh
ask
in on this specific standard, in the ordinance, it says that they need to have the application reviewed by the 3 departments and have them weigh in. I
As
haven't
far as
seen that. Has
yeah.
that been submitted?
I don't believe I have submitted it to the 3 chiefs yet.
Okay.
Okay, so
That is something I usually do.
That'd be-
So you'll take care of them, but aren't we talking about they're both important, but 2 different things? You're talking about emergency services to the site,
Yeah,
but you're talking about.
I'm talking
the
about
fact
the-
that this tower would give more service that would benefit, like there was something that these guys talked about. About letting local emergency utilize that they have.
Yeah, so I think there's 2 things. There's one item is the access to E911 by a resident using their cell phone. Obviously, that act is going to be enhanced by the proposed site. You can go to Walmart, buy a phone, not having a subscription to a carrier, turn the phone on and be able to use that phone to connect with emergency services at any cell site, including the proposed site. So that's one aspect of it, the E911. But I think you guys are also discussing the fire department, emergency in general, having an antenna at the proposed site to extend the reliability of the service that they have to communicate amongst themselves.
And that's what you're gonna get some data on.
So I know that for E911 and communications, those would be county tower, that would be technically a county tower. I know they always have interest in being co-located on any tower in the area because it does provide better coverage, especially if they continue with the digital system, but also having coverage. Yes, it's twofold. I can get information if you would like. I can ask for information from the county on that. And I can ask for information from our emergency services to cover both those questions.
I also, regarding 7.12, emergency services, all applications shall be reviewed by Waldeboro Fire Chief, Police Chief, EMS Chief. I did send them the pre-application back in November. Before we had the final application. I have not sent them the final application, but regarding the pre-application, all 3 of the chiefs had no further questions or concerns. They did say that area has been difficult at times. It would be a missed opportunity if we did not consider some space on the tower going in for public safety communications. I believe Chief Smeltzer feels the same way, so I'm in support of the tower in that regard. Otherwise, I do not have further questions or concerns.
So you'll get all that stuff finalized.
So I will send them the updated tower location and make sure they don't have any concerns. But regarding the pre-application, they had no.
Does that answer questions?
And to further answer the question, exhibit 8 to the application, there's a statement from the applicant. And under section 10.28.3.9.4, there's a statement by Blue Sky to allow, and I think this is what was being discussed, allow local and county emergency operation communication devices to be installed and maintained free of charge at the site.
That's good information.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to Article 8, not hearing any objections. Oh, yeah, so stormwater management and erosion control is here, but we just finished talking about that. Hydrogeologic assessment of groundwater, not applicable. So standards met. Any issues on 8K that are open items? Flood zone not applicable. Standards met.
No, they're within, they are not within a flood zone. They are within the setbacks of river, stream, brook, and wetlands. They are not close enough to require buffers. Just reminding myself what 8.6 says. No activity shall be permitted in any area where the soil is rated severe, very severe for proposed activity. According to the county soil survey, the soils in that are fine. The county soil map didn't have anything on there. They're not in a Great Fund watershed, and 8.4. Proposal will not alone or in conjunction with existing activities adversely affect water, the quality or quantity of groundwater both on and off site. As they're doing limited earthwork, they're not doing any sort of blasting or anything like that. And they're not doing a lot of soil disturbance, less than an acre of soil disturbance.
So do we know for a fact that there's no ledge interfering with the below ground?
We don't believe there is before construction. If this could go forward, there is a site-specific boring that takes place.
Okay.
But there are some, you go out there, there are some existing excavations around just from the farm. And based on our review of that, there wasn't anything obvious there.
It's unlikely,
Yeah.
but in the event that, you know, if you say its name, there's ledges everywhere. Then this, what you were just talking about, could become relevant or.
Well, 8.4 generally talks about things being stored underground.
Okay.
So
So not.
no activity shall locate, storage, discharge, or permit discharge of any treated, untreated, or inadequately treated liquid, gaseous, or solid materials of such nature, quantity, obnoxiousness, toxicity, or temperature that it has the potential to run off, seep, percolate, or wash into the surface groundwaters so as to contaminate, pollute, or harm such waters or cause nuisances such as objectionable shore deposits, floating or submerged debris, oil, scum, color, odor, taste, unsightliness, or be harmful to human, animal, plant, or aquatic life.
Well read. So that's even if they discover a little ledge, that shouldn't.
I mean, up to discussion of the board, but.
Okay, yeah. But anybody have any comment or? All right. I'm gonna move on to Article 9. So explain to me, it says waiver request or not applicable at the beginning of Article 9. Could you explain what that means, Kate?
Yeah, so the traffic impact analysis is required for demonstrating the impact of the proposed project on the capacity, level of service, safety of adjacent streets shall be required if the project or expansion will provide parking for 50 or more vehicles
Okay.
or generate more than 100 trips during the AM or PM peak hour based on chip generation subdivision.
So that's, it's really
So
not.
they're below the standards that we would apply for a traffic impact analysis.
Okay.
For example, the new Maine Health was required to do a traffic impact analysis. They
Right, because
expected
of
a
the,
high volume of traffic in and out. This
Gotcha.
is not that, so they don't,
correct, okay,
they don't meet the standard.
and,
Did
yes,
you skip over 8.8?
I kind of whipped through 8.8, yeah.
Well,
or all of
I
it.
have a question.
Yes, please, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I
No,
thought,
no worries.
as far as the aesthetics, I know there's picked around by a lot of people, myself included. But the aesthetics, I think, go forward. And I remember in the first practice, you gave some type of breakdown of how the, values and how much they would or wouldn't be. Now, so the butter, I think it's fair to say, a house is going to be probably your biggest expense in the building. If people see that tower there, how did you come with what were the matrix of getting those numbers? Because you had a nice layout, but I didn't understand how you got the matrix of how a house was, or how much it would stay, or how much it would go down. Wouldn't you have to wait to sell that, Because if you say you lose 10% monthly, because people don't want to be around a 9-foot tower. That's a lot of money for people. That's their life. So I just want to know what the matrix were on that presentation, that paper presentation that you gave. Yeah,
So-
yeah.
Yep, so this is a study provided by Vern Gardner. Let me see if I can. So the study was an impact study to determine whether or not proximity to and view of a proposed cellular communications tower adversely affects the potential selling price of any single-family dwelling. And what he did here is he has several different examples. And I can go through, through each of these, but
Just more of the process that
So-
he used. Did he go to various sites around?
no, I think,
How did he- how did he get to the-
so let's see. We can go through. There are the following 6 examples are drawn from an impact study for Rockland. Once again, the dates here are relevant. He looked at the prior sale. So the first one is in Rockland, Maine. The second one is in Wiscasset. The third one is in Wiscasset. And what he did was, have you seen you have this?
I see it,
Yeah.
we should see it, but I don't have,
Yeah,
in front.
so, let's see. It says the scope of my research includes the discovery of single-family dwellings that have sold that are proximate to and have a view of a tower. Each example was verified with the real estate agent who sold that property, and other calculations were performed to determine whether or not there is any impact on the selling price of single-family dwellings due to its proximate to and view of a cell tower. Let's see. Says Waldboro is situated, it's none of that there. think that he provided a summary in here. So on each of these examples, for example, if we look at the one for Cumberland, Maine. He said the property previously transferred on June 9th, 2013. For 440,000. That represents an increase of 30% when the median selling price increased by 24% same period. It's located with an upscale single-family subdivision. The particular dwelling is a custom quality colonial set among the trees. The communication tower is visible from the driveway and within 500 feet. According to the real estate agent, the presence of the cell tower did not influence the selling price. And I think that, that's the results that, he has in each of these. In fact, I think what, we see more often than not when someone is buying a house, they're looking at their phone to see if there's any coverage. And that adds, value to, a location to be able to have communication services. So, he looked at, the sales price in proximity to, a communications tower, and found that there was no, looking at data, that there was no.
I'd just like to know his methodology because Cumberland, I lived in Portland, look at houses go up by the week. It's a beautiful spot. So I was just, again, question how he did it, how his methodology was in evaluating which house and why.
Yeah. I mean, there's, not a lot of, there isn't any data in Waldoboro. So this is, data that he was able to, obtain, here in Maine, with, residences that were, let's see, much closer, 400 feet. So I can get more information on this report, but.
Any other questions or comments about? Good. Okay, I'm gonna proceed. Oh, go ahead.
I have a question. Steve doesn't know what I'm reading.
Okay, okay.
These seem to be all. I mean, there's summaries of properties and opinions, but it doesn't seem like there's any actual before and after appraised value. Like they didn't have a property that sold before a tower went up. This was the appraised value, and then there was one after. It's super hard. There's so many factors on market value that I don't know if it's something you could actually come up with. To prove one way or the other.
But I think the analysis that is done here is looking at the sale of properties that are in close proximity to a communications tower and asking the question as to whether or not that proximity to the tower had any impact on the sales price.
But to Daniel's point, I mean, that it doesn't, I'm not saying it's good or bad or otherwise, but there's so many other variables that, I mean, just watching the way the housing markets behave since the pandemic, there's so many other, variables that could have happened over the course of the study that would have affected value. So it's hard to attribute it to that one thing,
Right. So I think it was a very specific question that Vern was asking, was whether or not the presence of the tower, not as, and I agree with you, not any of those other circumstances, but whether or not the presence of the tower had an impact
But
on the price.
again, you know, the values of things went just ridiculously up in the last number of years, so one could have washed with the other. I mean, I guess, it sounds to me like, and this is I'm not sure how you would do this any better, but
I agree.
it's inconclusive.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of spelling errors, and I think some of the commentary is mismatched with the properties. I don't want to be hypercritical. I don't think that this type of analysis works in this area, because the houses aren't cookie cutter. Like, one might be, I mean, one of these right here went up 30% when other properties went up 24%, but there might have been another factor. I'm not saying that. I just don't think that this is, in my opinion, conclusive, but I don't think that there's anything you could provide otherwise that would be more convincing. I think it's just a lot of opinions, and it's all it is opinion. Just like my opinion now is might contradict some of these other people, but it's still just an opinion. I don't know if I necessarily think that this is a qualitative report. Because it's looking at properties, but it's not looking at appraised value before and appraised value after. It's
Just
like, I don't think the appraiser's been in these properties. They've gone to photos, but they haven't, there's not a full appraisal here. So,
And I would add that this does not appear to be held to any sort of specific standard, so we don't know if the person who put this report together did find a house with a negative impact and just chose not to include it for X, Y, or Z reason. You know, so if that was the reason, it would be found nothing. There's just, the document is not particularly compelling.
there was, and this is in response to another letter submitted by an abutter, which I have the same issues with. I think that it's he said, she said, so to speak. I don't think it's qualitative enough to base it, sort of, in my opinion.
So I don't necessarily disagree, but what I was looking for here is, and I had it out of order. But on page 27, the reconciliation and conclusion, which just might put some context to this. The point of this exercise is to analyze an element of value. The element of value is whether or not a communications tower has any effect on the selling price of single-family dwellings. To determine that, to determine this, the appraiser consultant located towers in various communities, both local and distant. With that information, the appraiser consultant first spoke with the real estate agents to inquire as to whether any prospective buyer had voiced an objection to purchasing in the vicinity of a tower. The answer from all the sources was no. Then the appraiser consultant spoke with assessing by inquiring as to whether property owners had applied for or been granted a lower assessment for their proximity to a tower. Once again, the answer was no. And finally, the appraiser consultant had the opportunity to speak with two property owners who stated that they were oblivious to or welcomed the cell tower.
So I think the sample size is so low in that.
It's,
I mean, because I'm looking at another one where they're sampling 22,000. And the relationship to the cell towers shows that there is definitely, you know, if you're within 1,000 feet, it looks like it's closer to a 10% drop. And
yeah,
you know,
Yeah.
that makes more sense.
And I don't know, just from my background, if it's possible to do that kind of large study in this area. I mean, in other states, houses can be so cookie cutter that it really is a perfect
apple to apple.
Yeah.
comparison. I think it's,
There's a lot of anecdotal stuff. I mean, but I mean, I don't think, I'll speak for myself, not trying to be critical of the effort. It's just inconclusive. It's just inconclusive. There's a lot of anecdotal stuff. I don't know, as the person tasked with keeping us on track here. I'm not sure how much more we can solve or not in the discussion. I appreciate the point, but, you brought this up. Are there any other things besides the study you want to ask about this, or? I don't know.
Again, just common sense. I just can't get my hands around having a 94-foot tower right out.
200.
How much?
It's 200, right?
200, right next to your
194.
property, and not thinking that's gonna affect the price negatively of your house. And your house is, as we all know, the biggest investment you're gonna probably make in your life. Let's just use the 10%. Well, if you have a house that's worth $500,000, you just lost 50 grand.
Yeah.
So again, I'm no seer, I'm no realtor, I'm nothing. I'm just sensibly, that came.
Well, I think that's a fair point. Beyond that, I'm glad you raised it.
But does the town ordinance have anything?
Right, it's,
Well,
well,
the aesthetic, cultural and natural values are, we will not have an undue adverse effect on scenic, natural beauty of the area, aesthetics, historic sites, significant wildlife habitats as identified by the Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife or the municipality or the habitat maps. Rare and irreplaceable in the natural area and public rights to physical and visual access to the shoreline. The words are sort of the standard in 8.8.
and so it's. I think its concern is legitimate in this conversation. And so noted. I guess when we get to the point where somebody actually renders a decision about this application, then that's certainly relevant to be part of the consideration. But I'm not sure we can solve anything else specifically at this moment in this context. So I'm gonna move on, but please.
There is a question of public good. I mean, you have to weigh one thing at a time. When they improved Route 1 going up from north, they expanded it considerably. The people who are on the one objective, yeah, but they didn't want that at all. And it was a big deal.
Right.
But the reality was Route 1 needed to be improved.
But you also can, don't confuse public things with private.
No, but
Saying
well,
we're putting in a new a new sewer treatment plant, nobody wants to live near it.
Right.
But that's for the greater good.
Right, but
This is a private
well,
enterprise.
it isn't really, well,
It's not,
except
we
that the
don't own
public,
it.
the public uses it. though.
Absolutely, for money. We all pay to use it.
Yes.
Like, well, this isn't, we don't get it for free. Like, our tax dollars don't pay for sewer. Like, we pay.
Right, but there's a service that's rendered here that we need and people want it. And you can be sure this, town of Rockland loved the fact that Route 1 was approved because they got more people driving through, Rockland to come to the restaurants, their stores, so.
People
yeah.
don't pay to use Route 1.
Well, they do
And
through their
they do.
taxes.
This will keep going.
And-
We're working extra hard on all of this because this is not the only dead zone in the town of Waldeboro. You drive around, there's lots of other places where your cell phone is gonna drop out. So we're gonna keep seeing this come up because there'll be other companies just like Blue Sky that sees a little money and finds a piece of land that meets all this criteria. And we'll be right back at it. So we have to do, it's our obligation to make sure that we do this right. Because we're gonna keep, this is gonna keep coming up.
I understand that, but there is a question of greater good here, and it isn't just, there are some people who rely on cell phone. And I was gonna bring up this point later on, but I'll bring it up now, is that the water. They rely on their cell phone. And I can give you an instance where I heard about recently, where someone who had died because, and they were saved because they had their cell phone and they had reception, more important. And they were, caught on a ledge, boat got away, sun was coming up, getting dark, and they were able to contact someone who could come save them. There have been deaths on the river for the last few years of people who lost their boats have turned over. that they might have been saved if they had cell service. So, I think there are a lot of stake here, and when you have, that have to be taken, that has to be taken into consideration.
So I guess. I think this is extremely relevant to the conversation to the final decision, and I'm hearing a nice conversation on both sides. I guess in the short term, I'd ask, is there any other information that can be provided on this subject that would be helpful to anybody when we get finally to the point where we're gonna make a decision about this application? Or not?
Madam Chair, if I may, with the other exhibits that we had handed out as a result of conversation from last time. This has been discussed as well. I did put together a document that starts off with, while recognizing the concerns raised by neighboring property owners regarding visual impact and rural character, the applicant submits the following. And I had put together a number of, public interest, reasons that if I could submit.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you distribute that. And again,
Thank you.
I don't want to, I'm not trying to minimize the importance of this conversation.
We don't need to go.
But I just feel like we could, this is definitely a key point in the whole decision, but we still have some of the checklists to, so we will be coming back to the points of concern, I think, when we get to that place, but in the meantime, you're gonna proceed with the checklist.
Can I add something just quick?
Absolutely.
Viewing this as if it was within 300 yards of Route 1, we would view it differently. I feel like this is an issue for the appeals board when they decide whether or not
That's a great point.
they can allow it in that zone. I don't think it's something that in my opinion.
Well, I think it might get deliberated on both places, but I agree that I would assume that would be part of the conversation that we feel for that. I have communication with them, so.
I believe that is specifically one of their 4 things they look at, isn't it, Kate?
So, but if we will have access to their, whatever the minutes are from their deliberations and that happen.
It's nothing that Thursday. You're welcome to come and sit in the meeting as a public. It's gonna be live streamed online.
Which one is that meeting? Is it
That's at 6:30.
Okay.
And it will have minutes. Every meeting, and those are available for you as well.
Okay, so I am gonna move on. We have this is the Rhodes Parkway Street. We've done we went backwards. I think we covered 9.
There are some overlaps in the different standards.
Yeah. So 10 is the one that's specifically about wireless telecommunication facilities. And this project, it says, is not exempt from amateur ham radio stations, antennas as accessory uses less than 7 feet in diameter, maintenance or repair, provided no temporary broadband infrastructure. And that's confirmed by you.
So, and just because the wording there is a little bit confusing, but.
Yes, it is.
In the ordinance, ham radio, antennas as accessory uses, if you're doing maintenance or repair, a temporary communications facility or broadband internet infrastructure does not have to meet these standards. Anything else has to meet these standards. So if you're doing a ham radio, for example, you don't have to meet the wireless standards in Article.
So those are the exemptions.
So those are the exemptions.
Gotcha.
This tower is not one of those exemptions.
Okay.
So
So
it has to meet the standard.
So the first item here is the topographical map showing all locations. And for facilities more than 150 feet high, which this is within a 5-mile radius of the proposed facility, and that's an exhibit 2. site plan, elevation drawings, landscaping, which we have an updated one of. We've seen photo simulations. Description, we saw a lot of this in the last meeting, description of the network. Let me just pause at the 3.7. Are there any questions, anybody, or comments or things people want to talk about in the 3.2 to 3.7 part of this checklist? I think all this material's been provided. It's my opinion anyway. No existing site, this is 3.8, no existing site evidence demonstrated that no existing building site or structure can accommodate the proposed facility. So this is saying that, that there is no other way to achieve the same purpose without building the tower. Am I interpreting that correctly?
Yes. Evidence demonstrating that no existing building, site, or structure can accommodate the applicant's proposed facility, which may consist of any one or more of the following. Evidence that no existing facilities are located within the target market coverage area as required to meet the applicant's engineering requirements. That evidence that existing facilities do not have sufficient height or cannot be increased in height at a reasonable cost. Existing facilities insufficient strength. Evidence that existing facilities do not have sufficient strength to support the applicant's proposed antenna and related equipment. And that has some standards: insufficient space. So the existing approved facilities do not have space on them. And that's it. So they have shown with their maps and with the list of other proposed sites that there are no existing facilities within the space that they can either increase the height on or increase the capacity of. There are no towers.
I mean, I brought up the question before about using the existing utility poles for micro tower things, and they said it was just too expensive. So didn't you say that?
That may have been, that was probably part of what I said, but that's not the proper context.
Or that blue sky doesn't do that?
No. The radius of a macro cell that we're discussing is anywhere from 2 to 3 miles. Okay, so 4, 5, 6 miles diameter, more or less. That's a footprint. The footprint of a small cell is measured in hundreds of feet.
Right, but there's
very small.
telephone poles all down.
Telephone poles everywhere, right? The amount of structures or hardware that you can put on that is limited. So what you put on a small cell, because of the height, is something like 1900 or 2100, which doesn't propagate too far. Therefore, the small footprint that is correlated to the height of the radio. So there are engineering issues with that because you do not achieve the coverage objective that you want to achieve. You do have a lack of coverage and you have a performance gap because you have no coverage. And the small cells don't reach into a home, for example. The coverage maps that I showed you last time, you saw the green and the yellow. Within the green footprint, you have in-building coverage. That is something that the small cell on a street pole wouldn't be able to give you. Besides the fact that you have a footprint that is miles in diameter as compared to a footprint that is hundreds of feet in diameter.
Understood.
Yeah.
But the question was, is this the only way to achieve the goal?
Yes, you have a significant gap in coverage, and the only way to achieve this objective is with a macro cell because it allows you to put the low bands, 700, 800, as well as the mid bands, 1900 and 2100. The mid bands give you a smaller footprint, but they help you with capacity. The small cells can only afford to have the mid bands, 1900 and 2100 megahertz.
I do think it's worth pointing out that with the small cells versus the large radio towers, or not radio tower, the large cell towers.
Yeah.
The large cell tower does have that broader footprint.
Yeah.
But the majority of that footprint, as we've seen on the map, is empty woods. And as Morgan pointed out in the previous meeting, one of the largest swaths of empty woods that we have in this area. Whereas the smaller units, they do provide a smaller footprint, but that footprint is centralized on roadways, which is where the majority of development and human activity is
Yeah.
located.
So I'd like to, again, stress the fact that the macro cell is gonna give you in-building coverage in your house. But to your point, about covering the woods where there's nobody there, well, there's something to be said for having the accessibility to service in case somebody is there. But let me also say that, there is a radio type that's being installed with this particular tower, and Verizon is doing this in every tower. And this is a C-band radio, which operates at the 3700 megahertz band or frequency. This particular radio has a phase array antenna. And what the phase array antenna does is it aims the traffic beam to the customer in particular. So there's an envelope of RF to determine where the customer is located. When the customer then attempts to make a phone call or connect to the internet, there's the beam is steered to that one customer. Okay, so that technology will be in place with this site.
I mean, the question was whether coverage could be done.
Achieved in a different way.
But I think we answered that question.
And
I think somebody who installs small towers on utility poles would have a different answer.
I don't think so, sir. No. I just told you that the footprint is much
I
smaller,
know,
that the type of radios that you could. I'm sorry?
Small cells.
I mean, I don't know,
Well, I'm telling you.
but you don't install.
in the.
No, and to be honest, if I may interject, the people that do the installation don't have the engineering background. So if you're listening to somebody that's doing that and telling you that, they don't really have the engineering background to tell you that.
Sure.
Well, but
I don't know enough to
just
disagree.
logically, the example that was raised about somebody out fishing in Las Bay.
Yeah.
If you need help.
Yeah, I guess I just can't visualize how if something is on, the telephone poles, there would.
Totally. And
Yeah.
now the next wave is satellites, I mean,
Well,
Okay, let's go there,
Yeah.
if I may.
I mean,
Let's go there if I may.
Yeah.
To answer your question as well. So, SpaceX purchased, 65 megahertz of spectrum.
Yeah.
Okay, you probably heard this.
Yeah.
All right. So what is the frequency of this spectrum? Is in the 1900 megahertz range. So the cellular space in the United States is worth $600 billion. So obviously, SpaceX wants a piece of that, and they're gonna get it. So what they're going to do is they're going to use small, low Earth orbit satellites, LEO satellites, and they're going to beam radio waves similar to those that are on the towers to customers' cell phones. That is called direct to cell service from space to the customer. The frequency is 1900 megahertz. So it has limited reach, but they will be able to serve some customers, particularly in rural areas. For example, I heard you say that there are multiple gaps in Waldoboro. Some of those gaps may work well in providing, if they're small, in providing coverage from a satellite And that's what he's aiming at.
Oh, no, I was talking more about the emergency situation.
Oh, okay. No, but that's where he's aiming at.
Yeah.
So the fact of the matter is that the 65 megahertz that he bought, that's SpaceX bought, SpaceX and Starlink is deploying this nationwide. Okay. I mentioned the C-band radio that Verizon is going to deploy on each sector of this proposed site. This C-band radio has a bandwidth of about 140 megahertz. Compare that to the 65 megahertz that SpaceX bought. Much different, much less capacity Starlink will have to start with. They're going to have to get creative, and I'm sure they will as time goes by. But starting from now, their coverage is going to be limited because of capacity. There's very little capacity. Yes, sir.
I brought this up last meeting, you know, you're familiar with Moore's law. Every 18
Yes,
months,
yeah.
transistor. I think the technology, I think it's going so fast, so quickly with AI that tower will be outmoded within a year.
You know,
Technology, something else will come in, as you alluded to.
yeah. So I think you need to realize that the technology will help with rural areas. In cities is a lot more troublesome because you have more obstacles and clutter on the ground. You still need the ground stations, and it wouldn't surprise me if SpaceX 10, 15 years from now buys AT&T or T-Mobile or Verizon for that matter, because they will have to rely at one point on ground stations to provide more coverage that can penetrate into structures. The 1900 is not good at penetrating into structures. Okay.
I'm gonna take a brief break. Daniel's gonna take over from me for a minute.
Ends the acting.
Are we all set with 102838? The no existing site.
I don't think we're gonna get more resolution out of more conversation at this
Yeah.
stage. So, yeah.
Good call.
Okay, moving on to 102839 agreements. Let me just make sure.
That's reasonable charge, require no more than a reasonable charge for shared use based on community rates. Generally accepted accounting principles, the charge may include, but is not limited to prorata share cost of the site selection, planning, project administration, land cost, site design, construction. The more
Amortization.
thank you, of the above cost by the facility owner shall be accomplished at a reasonable rate over the useful lifespan of the facility.
So is that just in regards to their lease of the site?
It's the lease of the actual tower.
Are we happy with that? Okay, moving on. This is mislabeled for the surety. It should be 1028.310 is the section that covers it. And in the ordinance, it says a form of surety approved by the planning board to pay for the cost of removing the facility if it is abandoned. They have submitted that. At our last meeting, we had asked for clarification on what form that will take, and also to have that updated to include. If I remember right, it only goes so many feet down. Not the whole footing. Yeah.
Yes.
So we talked a little bit about that last time, and our recollection was that you were looking for additional opinion of cost for removal of utility poles and power systems. So we updated the cost removal for that. which is here.
Thank you.
And we discussed
Thank you,
that there
sir.
are several forms that that can take. And I believe this guy was prepared to, if you're in agreement with the amount and the scope, that you would be looking to do a removal bond. There's other forms of surety, but they were looking for a bond to provide that.
This is their updated,
Sure.
yeah, and they've offered to get a bond.
Yeah, I think that's what we'll ultimately need, but I do get that the timing of when you actually purchase the bond, it's a little premature till the project starts, but
Yes.
I think this is sufficient to, at least in documentation. I just looked at it. I don't know about the amount. I haven't really studied it, but
It's gone up.
okay, good.
Just a quick question. What triggers a removal? I mean,
Disuse,
what triggers a
Abandonment?
removal?
just disuse.
Just
It
use
becomes
it, the
abandoned.
minute you stop using it, you
There's
must
a-
take it down.
There's
Yeah,
a
so-
standard.
Does the ordinance give a period of time? Usually what we see if the tower's been abandoned for a period of 2 years, meaning that
Yes.
there's not a carrier on there, then within,
Yeah, our ordinance says 12 months,
okay.
Right.
but
We usually see, 24 months and 180 days of notice so that, we can find a vendor
Get
and,
worked out.
get it done.
So which is it? 12 months or 2 years?
it's in our ordinance.
So it would go by our
12
ordinance.
months.
It's 12 months. The code officer issues a notice in 90 days. And they have 30 days to remove it.
And so if the technology does in fact evolve and in 5 years, nobody's using cell towers anymore.
still pay for it.
Right.
They get rid of it.
That's,
How many of those boxes, Peter, what do you call this thing, the actual module that beams out the thing?
Antenna.
Can you keep adding like 4, 6, 8, 12 and keep going and then have someone else take it over?
So Verizon is installing 3 antennas per sector. And there's 3 sectors, so
There should be 9.
9 at that particular level. And T-Mobile and AT&T are about the same. So that's how many you need on average to provide service with the multiple bands that the operators use.
You might see that tower with 15, 20 of these antennas.
That's how, whenever you look at a site, that's what they look like. Yes.
Any other questions on the surety?
Yeah, circling back to the bond real quick, I'm not a numbers person, I can't tell quite by looking at this. Is there a mechanism to account for the increase in cost over time of the removal?
Not in that document, but I believe in the, if you get a bond, you can purchase it with an escalator that it follows,
Like inflation.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's.
I believe
absolutely
that's a standard, right?
And so just a note.
That's like a present day cost, and
Yeah.
like you said,
Yeah,
and the
I don't know.
bond company makes sure that we're paying enough in annual premiums so
This,
that it,
this does illustrate what the range of the coverage and it would be good to have the escalator at the point that somebody's in a position to purchase this. But that's a great point. Any other questions? Sure. Okay, so the next area will be in the very next item, and we are getting to the end of this. The 300 yards of Route 1 is the variance has been requested, and that's going through the appeals board next week, so I don't think we need to talk about that. Municipal siting standards are met, not applicable according to this. Design for co-location of at least 3 additional. It says facilities or providers. facilities. That doesn't mean we need extra buildings, does it, or?
It's for co-location.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we look at the site out,
It's inside
Well,
the,
yeah, what it means is inside the compound, there's 4 total areas. There could be more, but there were at least room for 4. Typical commercial carriers.
Yeah.
You know,
and that's,
fit, plus the
yeah,
power itself.
Yep.
We'll have, the only person we know for a fact that's interested at this point is Verizon. However, there are 3 other levels that will be designated and have placeholder values for commercial equipment built in to allow that.
yeah, and that's shown on the compound plan and elevation drawing.
okay, I remember that. And the height is 195 feet, and it's 194, the 200's the limit, so it's 194 plus 5 feet lightning rod, which came up in another conversation, so I see that's been added.
Just a point of
Go ahead.
clarification, for the height, maximum height of new or expanded wireless telecommunication facility shall be 195 feet. According to our.
Oh, okay, so the lightning rod is not part of the 5, the fact that the lightning rod adds overall height? Is that what that's saying, or?
The ordinance is not clear about if the lightning rod counts towards the height or not, so that's something for the planning board to discuss. The ordinance simply says the maximum height of new or expanded wireless telecommunications facilities shall be 195 feet. The facility shall be designed to collapse in a manner that does not harm other property.
So caves down.
So
And we did want, I mean, I know people brought that up before the addition of a lightning rod. How do people feel?
What's the
about
size of that
it? It looks
lightning
like the
rod?
lightning rod puts it over the 195. But it's a lightning rod, is it? I mean,
Yeah,
what's
so
what's the size of that?
the discussion is the lightning rod qualified as part of the structure?
well, does it take us over the 195 feet?
Yeah.
Do we need? You know, how do you all want to handle that? I think the consensus in an earlier meeting was that we did want a lightning rod.
Yeah.
I think we need to be also consistent with what's happening in projects that don't come before us, but come to the town, and hear from the code officer that we have maximum height for new buildings like barns.
Great point.
If there's a lightning rod on the barn, are we in other applications counting that or not? Do you know?
Do you know that, Kate, or the?
So-
Our code officer is present with us. He can be put on the spot.
Typically for like a structure, it goes off of the structure itself. But I mean, I could see how the lightning rod could be considered the structure, but I could see how it could not be as well. But I mean, typically if someone was to put like a weather vane on the top of the barn, I wouldn't consider that as part of the structure for me anyways.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. The only thing I mean, a plane shouldn't be flying that close to the top of the tower anyway, right? So.
Is it
So,
lit?
They have FAA
No, it's not lit.
permission.
okay,
They do in your original packet. They have.
200 feet.
They
Right,
they
they
sent
did,
it to
yeah,
the
they
FAA
meant
to
that.
make sure that
They didn't need it.
so
I was surprised too.
the lightning rod would
What's
not
the
trip
trigger
that
for
either.
needing a
So
light?
I agree.
We gotta
personally.
ask them, what's the trigger for light?
200 feet and above, or if it's in a area that's in a flight path that
Right.
they would determine.
So the lightning rod would put it into.
No,
No,
still 200.
Nope.
Oh, okay.
It's 199.
199, so it's not,
And it's on the flight path too.
it's not in the flight path either, so,
No
I mean,
doubt.
this study is 2 parts, so is it a hazard to air navigation? Because it could be lower than,
Right.
that and be a hazard.
No, I know.
So-
There was a light.
We generally don't consider that as part of the structure because it's a safety thing and it's the
Well,
size of.
I like the point about
you
the
know.
continuity, what we
Right.
do with other structures in town, so.
Generally, just as the code enforcement officer had said that FAA looks at it very similar. There's a structure height and then there's what's called an appurtenance height, which would be, in this case, the lightning rod's considered an appurtenance.
Good
Both,
word.
yeah, both are provided and categorized in there. So if, you know, if the tower was raised for some reason or lowered, or the appurtenance height was changed, then that gets filed with FAA. So they need to know that, but it is a distinction, the structure height from an appurtenance, something that's on it.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is, and you've seen this on towers. Just coming up here, there's one in, forget the town, right, it starts with a W. Is it Wiscasset? There's on Route 1 off to the right, there's a tower, and there's actually a blinking light on it.
Yep.
And then there's several antennas that jut way, like probably 20 feet above that. So in that situation, you can see where that tower structure height must be over 200, and there's appurtenances that are higher as well. That's an example of how the two kind of work together.
The next thing here, we voted to follow the old rules, so the setback meets the old rules, and that we've got that outlined here. On landscaping, it says waiver requested, but we have a new landscaping plan that appears to me to.
I didn't update the checklist to reflect that they have.
Okay.
Submitted them.
Okay.
And they have submitted a landscaping plan.
Okay, perfect. And my recollection is that we had we have perimeter fence, we have the lighting that we discussed, confirmed by the planner. Color and materials, I can't remember what we said about that. But did we specify color of the fence? Did that come up?
I don't remember any of these previous conversations, but just trying to think.
I think you brought up what it is.
Right now, we're showing just galvanized chain link fence, but there are other options if the board.
Just color and materials. A new or expanded wireless telecommunication facility must be constructed with materials and colors that match or blend with surroundings, natural or built environment to the maximum extent practicable. Unless otherwise required, muted colors, earth tones, or subdued hues shall be used.
Okay, I would advocate, at least on the fence, I realize that you still have a tower that's very large that is some galvanized silvery color probably. But at least when you're looking straight ahead, it's every project I've ever worked on, I've advocated for the black chain link, because I just think it disappears more, and that would be my personal opinion. I don't know how other people feel about that, but it's, if there's a such thing as aesthetically pleasing chain link, I think black chain link comes the closest. And the buildings I trust are an earth or grayish or neutral.
Yeah, no
Cabinets.
no buildings particular in this one. Verizon's just proposing refrigerator sized cabinets, but yeah, they are sort of a gray tone.
Yeah.
We've done black fence before, so if that's something the board wants to condition, or if that's what they want to see, I don't think that.
I think that it's
I
just.
think there's a problem there. Just keep in mind, it's far off the road, but that's okay.
Yeah,
There are,
but it's still,
sure.
when you come upon it, I mean, it just, if you're gonna put chain link up anyway, I mean, it's.
Again, I've seen them do it, so I don't think. they're doing it.
And the towers themselves, silver is kind of the only option, isn't it?
That's what we're showing is the galvanized. I mean, that's the one that's used more often because it's not flaking paint and things like that. So
Right.
it works from that perspective.
Yeah, and I don't know. It would.
I'm inclined to agree that the black chain link fence is a harmless but potentially positive request
Right.
to include.
Any other comment on color materials? Structural standards, that's. Okay, can you?
A new or expanded wireless telecommunication facility must comply with the current Electronic Industries Association, Telecommunications Industry Association. 222 revision standard entitled structural standards for steel antenna towers and antennas.
So that's been met, yes. And then the noise, the question about. Just want to bring up the generator piece and check back in on that and the decibels and when.
So
when it's
last
going
time.
To actually run.
Last time it was, we wanted additional information on the generator, which we have here. The particular generator is a 50 kilowatt generator. It has an enclosure and it also has a tank, and some of that information is in here.
It can,
I
can you
do-
just remind me a couple quick things? When and how long is this going to do, like it turns on weekly, right?
So, yeah, so what happens is, there is a period of time and it can be set to go off. And the idea is that it starts up so that it's available when you need it.
Right.
The idea it can charge its batteries, it runs and makes sure that it's operational. So that can be set. Your ordinance says between 7 AM and 10 PM, but we've seen boards set a time, say 11 AM or 12 o'clock on a Tuesday, and it could run.
And how long what's the duration?
Usually it's about 20 minutes to my recollection. There's a warm-up period. It runs for a little bit and it shuts down.
We're getting close to transitioning to public comment. I'm just. Can we let me do it this way. Can we get back to you on that range?
100%.
Per what the neighborhood would prefer?
That's done quite frequently. Yep.
All right. Yeah, under all these papers is an agenda.
The application review, next is C, public comment. And then D, board deliberations and recommendations. It is 9:24.
That was the next thing I was going to bring up.
You don't in the ordinance have any sort of time limits to your meetings.
Right.
So we can run as late or as long as the board desires. There is a limit to human endurance.
Right. So what are the alternatives? And I guess I would feel awkward not giving all the people that came at least a little bit of opportunity to speak tonight. But I also.
I would suggest, and you don't have to take a suggestion, this is totally a suggestion. We have public comment and then we suspend the meeting. Just also because you were handed a lot of materials tonight, I think you're gonna be handed more materials tonight. It would be good for you guys to review and digest.
I agree with it.
What you talked about, what you thought about your questions before you come back to discussion. Because the next step is the deliberations and really setting what conditions and or deciding whether or not to approve or not approve.
And we would also know the result of the meeting next week.
And you would know the result of the meeting next week. So
Is that a public meeting?
that would be a public meeting.
That's the deliberation meeting.
Yeah. the
So-
deliberation
so-
meeting.
Yeah.
With no comments?
The reason I asked.
With no public comments?
The public, if we allowed public comments tonight, you wouldn't have to allow public comments. You could if you wanted to.
So this is my thought that maybe we go till. First of all, I want to thank you guys for, providing answers and helping us get through this checklist. I didn't want to make an awkward transition, it's just getting late, but what if we go till at least, I would say quarter of, just giving folks who are here because they came here and they listened for all these hours, a chance to speak. But also when we resume after because it sounds like we're gonna have another meeting after we go over all this and we discuss. Give the public another opportunity, another window to speak after they've had a chance to process as well. If that seems fair to me.
I would second that proposal.
I don't know if you'd have to make a motion of that, but I think you could.
I think
That's for the board to decide.
Yeah, do we have consensus with that idea?
So 15 more minutes?
Yeah, give these guys 15 minutes to. Get started, but also give them another opportunity the next time we meet. And
I generally approve of the idea. We may want to do a little more in 15 minutes because I count at least 8 people
Okay.
here, that's, less than 2 minutes a person.
Try for 15 minutes, but I'm gonna make a hard stop at 10. How's that?
I think I could
So
agree with.
just procedurally, you should, if you're going to continue the meeting, then you should have public comment first on the next agenda.
Yes.
Yeah.
Before the
Just-
vote.
Yep.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that.
Yeah, just consistent with, I think that's what I was saying.
We can,
yeah.
we can just postpone all of the public comments until the next meeting.
I just feel, I would not sleep well.
Mhm.
Letting these guys say something, they've been very patient. So I'm gonna entertain.
So I would like to motion that we have 30 minutes of public comment, up to 30 minutes of public comment, and then suspend this and have another period of public comment and our final deliberations at an upcoming, the next meeting.
Do I hear a second on that?
I second that.
All in favor of that? I see at least a majority. Okay. You guys,
And I'm gonna ask all you, is it okay if I hog the time? Yes, thank you.
and I will remind that. Well, I'm not gonna remind you of anything. It's just that you've been in the room, so you'll have other opportunities, but go ahead.
So you all know me. I'm Sally Williams. This is my son, Christopher Chase. We live at 2790 Friendship Road. I want to address some of the questions that were not answered, and I'm going to start with the photo simulations. So we know that last meeting on the 9th, Attorney Duvall made his apologies for speaking out of turn in the November 2025 Planning Board meeting about the options for photos to be taken from people's properties. He indicated at that meeting that when he went back and quote unquote fought with folks, it was a hard no that they just don't do what we originally asked. I have a problem with that because we were promised something. There is the ordinance that requires the photo simulations to be done, and it states that we get to ask for what we want. We did. A list was given to them, but they were not taken as specified. There are actually some problems with those photos. I don't know if any of you have them here with you, or would you like me to hold up the images as I speak about them?
That's probably.
I've got
more
them.
efficient if you hold them up.
I've got them. What's
I
this
mean,
one right
you'll
here?
go for this paper.
All right, so I limited, there are problems with many of the photos because they were not taken and they minimize what is actually going to be seen by the residents. So I'm going to pull them up one at a time and I'll have Chris bring it around and show it to you. So my first primary concern is the image that is for 2500 Friendship Road, which is photo 2A. Because it was taken from a public right-of-way, it does not represent what the homeowner would actually see, because just past the bushes in the picture, the view opens up, providing the homeowner with a very different vista. It's completely different.
Which side was on this one, Mom?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't see a tile on that.
Sign them.
So this is the driveway. The opening is right here.
That's right now. Yes, that was this one, yeah.
So do you have an image of what the owner would see?
I'm sorry.
Do you have the image
So
of
it's
what
not
the
in
owner would see? Did you take it?
Do you have the image?
It says, yes, are you saying like, we weren't able to superimpose of,
No, do you have a photo of the balloon test that day, Amy?
I don't have it with me, but yeah.
Well, I mean, so you're saying this is not what the owner would see?
Right.
but-
So
but
can you
but
plan to
don't-
bring it next time?
You don't have what the owner,
Right.
but you do have it.
Right, so we will provide that in the next public comments. The next one is the image for 2458 Friendship Road, which is 17A. That's the picture that was taken. However, it has GPS coordinates on it. The actual GPS coordinates are for 2450 Friendship Road, not 2458. So it was not taken at the specified property. So that is not in compliance. The town asked for 2458. it was taken at 2450.
Okay.
Hmm? It's another house altogether, another driveway. So it's not even remotely close. And then, of course, there's my property. So the photos for my property are 4A and 4B. And hold on a second. This is what it looks like. Show them that first, please. That's what is being shown as represents Christopher's and my property. Now, I did email Kate about this, and Kate did make some inquiries about it. And it was acknowledged that it was not taken at my home, but from the entrance of my driveway. However, the GPS coordinates for that image, the picture was actually taken, now I'm 2790. The picture was actually taken at 2810, and it's of an image of 2788. That's not my house, not even remotely. And I understand that I have an easement driveway, but there was a reason why I asked for the pictures to be taken from my property. Now, we're going to show you what it would actually look like from our property. Right? Let's really take a look at that. This is my house. That is my deck. That is the balloon. In answer to your questions earlier, what this is going to look like.
Yeah.
Right? This is not going to be pretty. That is, you can use your imagination. That is tethered. It's going to have a 3-part tower, 3 sides.
Did you take this photo yourself?
Yes, ma'am, because
Okay.
nobody did.
Because nobody, okay, that's,
And it's going to have all the co-locators on it.
gotcha.
4 potentials,
That is.
3 panels apiece,
This
40
jacket
feet in
that
height
photo.
at the top.
This is standing in our driveway.
Mhm.
That other photo. was
This is
taken
actually
the-
from my,
yeah.
inside the
Oh,
house.
you threw that inside that?
That's inside the house. So this is not going to be, oh, it's off the street, I'm not gonna see it. And these pictures should have been done for you with the images superimposed, so you could determine effectively whether there's gonna be negative aesthetic impact.
Yeah, that would be nice to have the tower, like,
Don't you think?
just just to give you a real sense.
Correct.
And I think you can do that, right? I'm no
Are
photographer.
those digital photos?
I took them off
Yeah,
digital
that
camera,
would be-
yeah.
Yeah, is that something,
Helpful.
my tech is really,
Well, without
Cover
having
the
the,
dark
without
ages.
having the GPS coordinates of exactly where we stood, they wouldn't be able to superimpose.
on the, well, like, the balloon is allegedly the top, so
Yeah.
could somebody Photoshop in a tower?
Well, sure, but why have I got to do that?
I'm not asking.
Right?
that. I'm
Why do I
asking-
have to do that?
I guess what I'm thinking is if you were to provide the digital to,
I don't actually want to give them anything. I'm
Well,
being
okay,
belligerent
okay.
and I know that.
no, that's all right. I'm just trying to solve problems for people. That's
It was,
all.
it was,
But-
our
but I-
understanding from the last meeting that one of the reasons why they didn't do this on people's property because of a liability issue. And they were allowed to do.
And I was allowed to
So-
sign the waiver. I agreed to sign a waiver.
Well, did you?
What about Maine's landowner liability laws that protect anyone on someone? Like Maine has a landowner liability law that protects anyone who crosses anyone else's property. So why was Maine's liability law not taken into effect on that?
In other words, just to clarify what you said. In other words, if somebody's out hunting deer and crosses your property and they break their leg, the owner is not liable for that.
Yeah, not if you're hunting deer, no, as long as you are just walking across
Oh,
someone's
right.
property. And as long as you do not put out a trap, the law does not stand if you're like putting booby traps on your property. But as long as you're not putting booby traps on your property, you are allowed to walk on anyone's property in the way you cannot see the landowner. So I was just curious as to why they're saying they couldn't take photos because of liability, but Maine has a landowner liability. That is genuinely a question.
This was the one.
So I give that all to you to think about. But I want to, in the interest of time, I have more important information that I think you need to do that will answer some of your questions and Daniel, some of yours. So I looked at that impact study and I'll be honest with you, I was appalled. So I did some homework and that is not even remotely what should have occurred. So I contacted another appraiser and I didn't have them do an appraisal because it's expensive. It's very costly to have them do that. But I share with you what an impact study is supposed to look like because I had another appraiser give it to me. That's what you should have received. And Daniel, you are absolutely correct. None of that data, opinions. It's nothing. There is no data in it at all. And now I'm going to explain to you why. It is absolutely a bogus piece of information. And I have here from that appraiser, his critique. And it explains why. It's 8 pages, but I'm going to give you some highlights. So I had a New Hampshire certified general appraiser, and he could do a critique. He's not licensed in Maine, but he can do a critique because I didn't ask him to do an appraisal. His name is Louis Manius, and he reviewed that study by Vern Gardner and that was prepared for the applicant. On page 2 of his letter, Mr. Manius states, and I quote, "The first item that I must highlight is that Gardner did not complete a study or analyze any data that would provide you or the board market evidence to support a claim of no impact to property value." That's a direct quote. I'm going to quote again, page 3. He, Vern Gardner, makes an unsubstantiated comment that based on the orientation of the property of 2790 Friendship Road, its distance and obstructed view of the proposed cell tower, there will be no adverse effect on the selling price of single-family dwellings. The reason, according to Mr. Manius, this is unsubstantiated, is that he never viewed the subject property. He admits that in his own report that he did not go to the property. He was not present for the balloon tests and cannot make the judgment without being present. This impacts the credibility of any conclusion he arrives at. Also on page 3, and I quote, "Although they can be related, price," to Daniel's point, "and value can also be very different. Typically, real estate agents work with sellers in order to determine price to sell a property. Value is determined through exposure, negotiations, demand, supply, concessions, and need, which are then determined between the buyer and seller. Gardner makes a conclusion above regarding price only," which is what was some of what was discussed here, that all it was selling prices. There's a whole lot of other data that should have been considered. In that example report, he does do just that, where he takes a property prior and then later, and then one that's equivalent that didn't ever have a tower, and then compares them using a whole lot of other data. Page 3, another quote, "The document prepared by Gardner is only a survey of real estate agents with no specific data or analysis completed by an appraiser." Page 5, on page 27 of Vern Gardner's document, he stated, "The purpose of this exercise is to analyze an element of value. That element of value is whether or not a cellular communication tower has any effect on the selling price of a single-family dwelling." Important within the first line of the conclusion page is the word "analyze." This implies that some type of analysis has been completed. This could not be further from the truth. This document is a survey of unsubstantiated opinions. In the beginning of this document, he indicates a study was completed. His document is not considered a study due to the lack of data or analysis included. His document is essentially a compilation of unverified interviews with real estate agents involved in the sale of properties that are in proximity to cell towers. Page 5. He generated this quote unquote new study within 7 days, which does not allow adequate time for research and proper analysis to be completed. It appears reasonable to conclude that he did not conduct any research in the subject community, which you already questioned, relative to potential cell tower impacts that may or may not exist. We have 2 other towers in town. There could have been some research done. Since he did not go view the subject property, it would appear reasonable to conclude that he did not take the time to do any new research in Waldoboro and is trying to present this older information as being credible. His final conclusion is based upon the analysis the cell tower proposed will have no effect on the market value of single-family dwellings in Waldoboro. These are interviews, but there is no material evidence or analysis presented in this document to support that claim. The document produced by Gardner does not provide the board with any information by which they can make a reasonable judgment. It does not, in my opinion, satisfy the criteria necessary under the zoning application relative to impact to property values. Per Louis Manius, it is my conclusion that the Gardner report is lacking in enough detail and has no current analysis of any kind specific to Waldoboro or the surrounding communities, and that the planning board for the town of Waldoboro, Maine should not rely on it based on its aged content with unsupported conclusions. The Gardner report fails to provide any data or credible analysis that will support a conclusion of no change to the market value of abutting properties.
I have a quick question. In this research that you've done, did anybody tell you how much something like this would cost and roughly how long it would take to execute?
He did tell me a good analysis would take 2 months.
Okay, and the cost?
$5,000 to $10,000 was my understanding.
Thank you.
And the end of that example one, it does say that it is just logical, right? As was said, that there's going to be negative impact. There's just no getting around it. It's going to vary. The National Realtors Association on their webpage will even say it does cause negative value, but it varies because there are variables that have to be considered. The proximity, how tall the tower is, how visible it is, all of those things. But you cannot say there will not be negative aesthetic impact. And that falls under undesirable change. If we allow this to go forward, we're going to suffer financially because of that. So will several other houses. Those photo simulation photos do not really show the impact to the neighborhood and to the other houses. A lot of the photos are taken from the street, but people have windows in the back of their houses and they can see something different from the backside of their house than can be seen from their driveway. So this is not fulfilling the land use requirements in order to tell us so that you can make a really informed decision.
I think would be good, again, a superimposing of the tower from that picture you took. Could
That's
you,
what they were supposed to.
That is what the town asked for.
that picture would speak volumes. Just to get
So
that sense of-
float a balloon. I will sign off on you coming to my house and taking all the pictures that make you happy.
That picture again.
The big photos? Yeah.
Right.
November, yeah, but in November, yes.
So this one.
So I would ask the board to take that impact study and set it as,
If you're both talking.
sorry.
People can't hear.
This is the one.
So I would just ask that the impact study created by Vern Gardner be set aside and not be considered as acceptable meeting land use criteria. And as a side note, Vern Gardner has a huge history in litigation where he's an expert witness, where he has been proven not to be credible. And if you want that information, I can give it to you. He's also been caught lying in court, and I can also provide you with that information. So please think very strongly about whether you want to accept that impact study provided by Blue Sky Towers. The other couple of things that I would like to touch on, and I will go away because I know everybody needs to go home. But the application has historically, even in its current form, had inconsistencies throughout it. Please be aware of that. And I won't go into all of them tonight. I can bring more of that to your attention next time if you want. The application also does not provide any real actual RF data needs. There are specific things that I would ask you to be requesting from the applicant in order to prove that. The maps are there, that's great, but I want to know more than just that. I want to know actual size of the gap. They do the maps. What's the actual size of the gap? The number of users in that reported gap. How many of Verizon's users in the area are actually affected by the gap? We do have 10,000 acres of conservation land, right? The Verizon's data about the percentage of unsuccessful calls or inadequate service during calls in the said gap along the area, along with drop call records from Verizon, because that's the only place you can get them, and actual road drive test data for the area they want to serve. That would really give us hard information on what the need is, not propagation maps that are created by predictive modeling. And it's all based on what they put in the system that they want it to show. And I said it last time, and I'm going to say it again. There's questions about whether that program is still supported. All research shows that it was dropped in 2004, no longer supported by Ericsson. The trademark has been canceled.
And it was not designed for the current generations of cell phones. It was designed for the cell phones of that era up to 3G.
And if I'm making ridiculous comments, so be it. You saw what this is going to do to my property and the potential of what it's going to do to my property value should we need to sell that house at some point.
Does your research show the name of an alternative modeling?
There's several out there, and a lot of them have AI stuff. The only person on the internet, the only company is C-Squared Systems that is still using Decibel Planner. I can find no reference to it anywhere else, and there are other reports out there. They are the only ones. And I want to address that marine thing. You said about lobstering. And correct me if I'm wrong, but the Telecommunications Act of 1996, cell towers are a land-controlled service. The FCC has different systems that cover what goes out over the water. If you look at the propagation maps, they're not showing you that there's coverage over the water. There's no green over any of that because they can't. They cannot tell you it's going to provide coverage there. So you can't use that as a basis for, well, we might have some help for lobsters. You might, lobstermen, you might, but it's a lucky happenstance. It's not guaranteed because radio communications is what they're supposed to be using out on open water. That's a whole different system. And they can't promise you that there's going to be any coverage to help lobstermen and clammers. So that's one piece. And as far as when you ask, please ask the emergency service people, not for their reports of what they've heard. Please ask for real data. Right.
I will, but I don't know that there'll be real data other than anecdotal.
But that's not quantifiable.
But I understand that, but if you can't make a phone call, I don't know how that gets recorded.
But there is systems for that, and you need to ask that question because an anecdotal story is just that, it's an anecdote. I'm not saying it didn't happen, but again, just like looking at that impact study and needing hard data, you need the same thing around where were they? Were they in a low spot? Because the cell service may never make the low spots.
And so that may not be stuff we can produce again.
Right, but
I'll do my best.
Right, but I want to make sure we understand that quantitative, hard concrete data is what you should be using as opposed to anecdotal things, which is qualitative. And there's all kinds of factors that could have influenced that. Old cell phones that, you know, don't work very well or weren't meant to, that they should have been replaced 20 years ago or whatever. But you can't just determine, it could have been the weather that day. Fog impacts things sometimes. So you need to look for really hard data. And I'm sure, trust me, and I know I will have more things to say next time, but I will leave you tonight. Thank you for indulging for this amount of time so I could at least give you the actual factual data that I had collected that I thought it was important for you to see.
Divers don't use ship-to-shore radio, they use cell phones. Because their vessels are not designed for that, they're basically.
And that's fine, but that still doesn't guarantee coverage on the water.
No, yeah, I don't.
Beg to
let me just say
differ
one
on
thing.
that one.
I don't think there's a guarantee, but I will say that the maps did show some of the islands, and I think none of it's absolute. To your
Right.
point, but you could see changes according to that modeling that were positive on some of the islands, and so you can infer.
You can infer, absolutely, but
Right.
it's not a guarantee.
I don't think any of it's a guarantee with our geography, to be honest with you, but anyway, no, I appreciate your comments, I appreciate your hard work.
I just wanna say, even kayakers have channel 16 radios attached to them. Like, kayakers have it, so like, that is standard water safety, is to have a marine channel radio tuned into channel 16, whether you're walking or kayak clamming or whatever.
We have 4 minutes. Are there any last shots or do people can
No.
to wait until the next meeting?
No.
Okay, a minute. We got
All
it.
right, can you go to the lectern, so people can hear you?
Some of this may have been something you've heard, some of you, but not all were present when it was last shared. So just for clarity and simplicity, there are 3 points to focus on in the forefront, to keep it in the forefront of our minds. Each one is explained in greater depth in the memo of opposition. So number 1, propagation maps do not prove the existence of a significant gap in service. The gap must be, and this is quoting from the memo, the gap must be large enough in terms of physical size and number of users affected to distinguish it from a mere and statutorily permissible dead spot. Indeed, federal regulations contemplate that areas enjoying adequate coverage will still include spots without reliable service. Dead spots are defined as small areas within a service area where the field strength is lower than the minimum number level for reliable service, and the presence of dead spots does not mean that the service is per se inadequate. Sally already, so bearing that in mind, have we received the substantive report that tells us the physical size of the said gap, the number of users a said gap affects, whether all of the carriers users in that area are similarly affected by said gaps, data about percentages of unsuccessful calls or inadequate service during calls in said gap area. Hard data, such as dropped call records and drive test data from a third party. So a third party is straightforward, avoiding error or inaccuracy, and essential to determining process that's before the board. Number 2, the proposed cell tower is incompatible with our town's responsible comprehensive plan and land use ordinance, are 2 visionary documents that uphold town values and is used as a measure to identify what stands to jeopardize those values. A variance from a 300-yard restriction is only permissible if such granting does not result in an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood and will not unreasonably detrimentally affect the use or market value of abutting properties. Also from the memo. Quote, federal courts around the country, including the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 1st, 2nd, 7th, 9th, and 10th circuits, have specifically held that significant or unnecessary adverse aesthetic impacts are proper legal grounds upon which local governments may deny a zoning application seeking approval for constructing a wireless telecommunications facility. Also, quote, As logic would dictate, and as federal courts have held, it is the homeowners who are best suited to accurately assess the nature and extent of adverse aesthetic impacts of an irresponsibly placed wireless telecommunications facility upon their homes. This is especially true of homeowners whose property is adjacent or in close proximity to a proposed cell tower. Quote, federal courts have recognized that it is completely proper for the local zoning authority to consider the professional opinions of licensed real estate brokers as opposed to appraisers as direct evidence of the reduction in property value that an irresponsibly placed wireless facility would inflict upon nearby homes. And number 3, the board has the authority to uphold our town's responsible comprehensive plan and land use ordinance without the threat of suit. Documentation sufficiently explains how the proposed cell tower would have an undesirable change to the character of the neighborhood, a negative aesthetic impact to immediate or nearby neighbors, and a negative market value impact to immediate or nearby neighbors. An in writing decision to deny the proposed cell tower based on the substantive evidence satisfies the requirements of the Telecommunications Act of 1996. And then just as a, I'll save it for next. Thank you.
Just before I entertain the motion to adjourn, is there any chance that I'm thinking particularly of the appraisal and the propagation maps with, to their point, is there any possibility that the Blue Sky team would entertain those suggestions to redo those 2 items?
I will follow up with Blue Sky.
Absolutely. That sounds great. I'm willing to entertain a motion to continue the meeting. Is
Yeah.
that the correct?
I think we have to set the time for
Do we need to
time and
set
date.
the?
Say the motion.
Okay.
It would be at the next planning board meeting.
But before we do that,
In a month.
when does the stop clock run out?
It would be the end of September, so our next meeting would be within,
So we're fine. Okay.
and our next meeting.
Would be the second Thursday of September,
Which is the 10th.
The 10th.
And the appeals board is meeting when?
next week.
On the 20th?
August 20th.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's 20th at 6:30.
Okay. I move that we continue this matter until our next regularly scheduled meeting and adjourn this meeting.
Yeah,
I second that.
all in favor? Thank you to everybody. Appreciate it.